What is up, Earthnoids and Space Noids? I am just a simple new type, and in this video we are diving into the light novel, Advance of Zeta, under the flag of Titans. In this episode, we learn about Eliard Hunter, who was a part of the Titans test team during the Grips conflict. In UC 0088, he is in jail and is convinced of multiple crimes that will ultimately lead to his death. Luckily, his attorney, Comrade Morris, learns more about Eliard as we learn what crimes he committed. So let's get into this. February 8th, UC 0088. Lieutenant Junior Grade Eliard Hunter is being attacked in his Gaplant Huayru. The ORX 005 Gaplant TR5 Huayru is a variant of the Gaplant TR5 that fixes the movable shield binders that were designed mainly for new types. This replaces it with booster shields. It also has an enhanced V-fin sensor. The mobile suit carries a long blade rifle, which is mounted on the underside of the machine in mobile armor form. When used with the Hududu 2, it can function as a mobile armor and mobile suit on a similar level to the Dendrobium. These names all come from a language made by rabbits in an adventure book from the 70s. Tomino trolled the executives back in the day, and it was funny, but now would embolden new writers to create even dumber names. Some of you people say Tomy yes, but I say Tomy no. This unit also uses the arms of the Psycho Gundam. It is equipped with a beam cannon, a beam saber, a spread beam, an eye-field generator, and a sub-arm. His thrusters have run out. Minovsky particle dispersion increases as he can't get a hold of his comrades. He sees a beam saber flash before a ball of fire is set ablaze. Eliard doesn't know if it is enemy or ally. 20 days prior, the AUG had gained control of Grips 2 Colony Laser. A three-way battle takes place between the Titans, the AUG, and Axis. A Salamis Kai space cruiser, the Izmir, sinks. This is Eliard's ship. His home is no more. He has nowhere to go and feels despair. Something latches onto him. It is Commander Wes Murphy and another Gaplant Huayru. He calms Eliard and tells him to fall back to the Aswan in the rear. Eliard is worried about his teammates Carl and Audrey, but there is nothing he could do as his mobile suit is useless. He needs to fall back. While heading back, the commander mentions that Shar may be the one piloting the golden mobile suit. He always wanted to go up against him. They make it to the Aswan deck, where Eliard needs help opening his hatch. The deckhands are concerned his Gaplant reactor is going to explode. They decide to dump it. Eliard looks over to see Commander West being wheeled out. He was completely soaked in blood, but he still had the energy to give Eliard a thumbs up. For the first time in a while, he felt exhausted. May UC 0088. Eliard Hunter is taken from a detention cell to an interrogation room with a one-way mirror. Sitting across from him is a man with the rank of Lieutenant Commander. The man says to leave them and to turn off the cameras. He is Comrade Morris, his EFF-appointed defense attorney. He is being court-martialed. Eliard asks, where should he begin? Conrad tells him to start from when he was first assigned to the Titans up until the final battle. Eliard says that he is proud of the Titans and he did what he did for the Titans and believes he did nothing wrong. The Lieutenant Commander says, let's begin. December, UC 0083. Eliard receives new orders and a new promotion to Lieutenant Junior Grade. While in the middle of training outside of the Earth sphere, he gets word that he will join the ranks of the Titans. He went to the Naval Academy and soon became an ensign, where he was assigned to the Earth's Orbital Fleet Patrol operations and helped during the Delaz conflict. Eliard shares the anti-Xeon remnant sentiments that most of EFF felt during this time. He reported to a base in North America where he received his Titan's uniform. He starts to feel a bit of imposter syndrome, but then gets a great sense of pride. He was assigned to an experimental mobile suit team where he met his commanding officer, Wes Murphy. Wes fought during the One-Year War and the Delaz conflict. He meets his teammates, Lieutenant Junior Grade Carl Matsubara and Audrey April. To quote the writer, she was a female officer who could sport a short cut and still look good. Someone projecting a little passive-aggressive bitterness in their writing. If one thing this Japanese robot book is going to have, it's going to have anti-short hair sentiments, damn it. They all tease each other and get along relatively quickly. Carl pilots the GM Sniper 3, the RGM-79 SR GM Sniper 3. is a modified version of the GM-Kai high mobility ground type and converted it into a sniper unit. It has a visor for high performance optical targeting. Only one of these was assigned to the Titans test team. It has two different configurations. The medium range support type or cannon pack increases the firepower. This uses shell weapons instead of beam tech to reduce strain on the generator. The high mobility type utilizes a Hyzek backpack with added GM3 thrusters. It also adds a prototype 240mm beam launcher to the armaments. Other weapons include a beam saber, 60mm Vulcans, a shield, and the 110mm bazooka. Commander Murphy pilots a GM Quell with a commander head to test if it brings down enemy morale. He calls it Hazel. The RX-121 Gundam TR-1 Hazel is a test unit piloted by Wes Murphy and the Titans test team. This is a GM Quell with an RX-type Gundam head. This test unit is designed to see if the Gundam look instills fear into Zeon. It has a new backpack and improved leg thrusters. Its dual shield boosters contain a lot of high thruster propellant and is the evolution of the Sturm boosters. It has a full armor configuration which allows the unit to add disposable heavy armor, but the added weight slows it down. The high mobility form equips 3 shield boosters, one on each arm and one on the movable booster pod attached to its enhancement backpack. They head out and spot 3 Gelgoogs carrying Zaku machine guns. They have found Zeon remnants. Wes tells Carl to fire the long-range beam rifle. The two teams engage in battle. Eliard is in a GM Kai, also known as the GM C-type or late type. This is his first real battle with the Titans. He tails a Gelgoog and is able to take it out. He notes how quickly it went. The other 2 Gelgoogs are following Wes. Carl tells him to back up the commander, but he doesn't need backup as he was able to take out one on his own. One Gelgoog left. Eliard doesn't need to help him. Wes pulls out his beam sword and clashes a few times with the Gelgoog before taking down the final mobile suit. Wes says, "Watch your backs on the battlefield. Don't and you're dead." Eliard felt invincible with his new team. May UC-0088, the Federation Forces JAG Bureau. Conrad stares out at the Nevada base to see desert wastelands. It comforts him and reminds him of the lunar seas. Post-Operation Stardust, this area of North America is a wasteland after the colony drop. He meets with a superior officer, Commodore Eddie Southwell, who is in charge of the Earth Federation Forces Legal Affairs Bureau. He hands him a bunch of files to choose from. Of course, Conrad chooses Eliard's case. Eddie believes that he is a lost cause and the best they could do is reduce his sentence. Conrad wants to take on the case and prove his innocence. Eddie explains that he is a young man at just 27 years old. There were rumors about him within the Federation forces. Several charges were listed. However, the most severe one involved his actions during the struggle with the colony laser between the AUG, the Titans, and Axis. Conrad was a former mobile suit pilot during the 1-year war and received an injury in his leg. He piloted a GM early type during the Battle of Solomon and was forced out of his cockpit. He now requires a cane. Conrad was a military man through and through. He can't get a job in the private sector, so he used his time in the military to enroll into law school. Do you think EFF has a GI Bill? He eventually became a lawyer and transferred to the Legal Affairs Bureau. He became a great lawyer throughout the years and always took on the hard cases, so this is no different. The Commodore has sat behind the desk throughout all of the wars and never seen any real battle. He is a chicken hawk with an inferiority complex, very bureaucratic by nature. Regardless, he allows Conrad to take on Eliard's case. May UC-0088. Conrad goes over the charges. The first crime is his involvement with the Colony 30 incident. If you remember in Zeta, Rekawa and Emma had a conversation about the incident on Side 1 Colony 30. This was the first time G3 nerve gas was used to kill everyone in the colony and caused anti-Titans organizations like the AUG to rise up. The second charge was for dangerous conduct during a mobile suit test flight. He essentially did a Top Gun flyby and was detained for a week for his actions. This is a past incident, but this crime is being called back into discussion. The third charge is desertion during the Grips 2 colony laser battle. Desertion is an automatic death penalty, though this is the first time anyone is actually getting charged for it. Amado and Shiro got away with it. Everyone runs away. It is a Gundam cliche at this point. The fourth charge is the destruction of a prototype mobile suit, which happened during his third charge. He mentions the new decides and the uprising on Pazun, which solidified the downfall of the Titans. We really need to cover Gundam Sentinel. After this, along with the Colony Laser incident, EFF slowly began regaining authority by flushing out Titan remnants. Slowly, they started the court-martial process for all captive Titans. Eliard Hunter is one of these people. Comrade is certain that he could work with most of this. But desertion and destroying a top-secret mobile suit is going to be a tough one. All data has been declassified, but no data exists about this prototype mobile suit. He is going to have to talk to Eliard directly. July UC0085. Murphy's team was ordered to rendezvous with a transport and escort them to Side 1. Their current base of operations is on Compay Island, formerly Solomon. Captain Otto Peterson of the Compay Island Defense Forces tells the team to watch out for terrorists and pirates on Side 1. Eliard watches as Commander West launches in the Hazel, which has extra experimental armor added to the unit. This is the full armor Hazel. The RX-121-1 FF-X29A Gundam TR-1 Hazel Raw full armor is the full armor mode with the Hurdudu pack added. We haven't talked about Hurdudu, so let's break it down. The FF-X29A G-Parts Hurdudu is a support fighter developed to work in tangent with the Hazel. This unit can function independently as a support craft, but this takes inspiration from the G-Fighter and can of course dock with the mobile suit. Independently, this is equipped with a claw unit which has a beam emitter, beam reflector shields, and a long blade rifle. He is conducting a mobile suit test on this new upgrade. Carl launched in the GM Sniper 3 and Eliard in the GM Type C High Mobility Type. The RGM-79CR GM Type C High Mobility Type was initially developed as a test machine to see whether or not they should adopt it for use, and it uses the original Type C as a base. The backpack contains improved thrusters and a high-performance sensor. Also, vernier thrusters are added to the calves. Weapons include a beam saber, Vulcans, the GM2 beam rifle, and a shield. Audrey remained on board the Aswan. They notice enemy mobile suits approaching planetside, and Carl begins sniping while the other suits rush in. One mobile suit is too fast for Carl. It is a Zaku 2 Kai. Eliard is able to focus in and destroy the Zaku. Wes is struggling to pilot Hazel with the extra armor. He runs into a mobile suit that looks like a fusion of the Gelgoog M and the Rickdom. More on this unit later. Eliard is able to scare off the unit and save Wes Murphy's life. July, UC0085. The Murphy team was successful in escorting the transport ship safely to Side 1. Captain Peterson doesn't waste time and gives them their next mission. They are to support Basque with rear support. The Hazel won't be fixed in time, but Peterson tells them of the new Hyzacs that they just received. Murphy heads to the hangar to see the new Hyzac pre-production type. The YRMS-106 Hyzac pre-production type is the opposite of the prototype Hyzac. The prototype version is a state-of-the-art Hyzac, where the pre-production type is a testbed for mass-producing the Hyzac. Many of the improvements of this model can be found in the Hyzac scene in Zeta Gundam. These units have panoramic cockpits, but will change to traditional cockpits when mass-produced. It has a shoulder shield and a beam rifle. Eliard saw that West didn't really complain and just kind of went with his new orders. He starts adapting the same attitude as Wes. Eliard stands at attention in front of his superior officer. Comrade asks the guards to leave them. He knew that even though he said this, the Federation would still be looking through the one-way mirror. It was mainly to ease the mind of Eliard. He tells him to sit and to tell his story. During the One-Year War, he was a GEM early-type pilot. Comrade could tell that he was one who looked back at war with a sense of honor and a hint of sadness. Okay, this is deja vu, right? We had this exact moment last episode. This is apparently supposed to be from Comrade's POV instead of Eliard's. But with the exception of, I guess, a little bit more empathy, nothing is different. The writer wrote the same scene twice. Thought I was having an aneurysm for a second. UC0085. Eliard is telling the Zaku F. This is the unit that destroyed the Hazel's leg. Wes Murphy tells the team to move in. Carl covers from the rear. They pick up communication from the Zaku pilot saying that their unit is a disgrace. Of course, he is referring to the Hyzac. We have encountered at least one moment in the past where a Zeon remnant was appalled by the Federation using the Zaku design to create their own unit. It won't be the last. Eliard tries to distance himself from a Rickdom. Carl's GEM Sniper 3 fires its long-range rifle and grazes the Dom. It turns around, now focusing on the sniper. It fires on Carl, but it isn't your typical 90mm machine gun rounds. These seem to be some sort of tracer rounds. This deactivates Carl's unit, but he is still alive. Zeon backups are approaching them, and it is looking hopeless. Eliard started to fear death for the first time in his life. Pete Shelton is trying to fix the Hazel when Audrey April comes in asking what is wrong. There are at least 5 official pieces of artwork that show Audrey, and you're damn right, at least 2 of them show off her boobs. Nice. He mentions the leg isn't working. She gets into the cockpit and types away on the mobile suit system. It only takes her a few seconds to recalibrate the leg. She is heading out, and they suggest they use this opportunity to use the high mobility Hazel. The high mobility form of Hazel is equipped with 3 shield boosters, 1 on each arm and 1 on its backpack. It has all the features of the full armor type, and this is considered its final form. It can achieve speed similar to a mobile armor. It has a design feature where they orientate the thrusters in a single direction, which will be used later in Mobile Suit Titan's development. The team is furiously fighting on the battlefield when Audrey rushes in to help. With her help on the battlefield, everything changed. They regroup around the Hazel and begin getting the upper hand. The enemy begins to retreat, and the team turns to the Aswan. UC 0088. Conrad is struggling to get answers out of Eliard as every question seems to bring the weight of guilt down on him. He was on an escort mission around Side 1. Captain Otto Peterson gave orders. Conrad tries to get Eliard to specifically repeat exactly what the captain briefed him on. They were given a data disk with coordinates, with the timestamp and instructions on when to leave the moon and head to Side 1. They were informed of anti-Federation movements linked to Neo-Zeon remnants. He, however, received no intel on the cargo they were carrying. If you haven't realized it yet, we are about to see the Colony 30 incident play out. The cargo is G3 gas. It seems the T3 team was left in the dark, or at least the others didn't seem like they were lying to him. He asks what he would have done if he knew what the cargo was. He looks down and pauses for quite a while. He then says he would have most likely still done it. It was his orders, and as a soldier, one must carry out their orders. This is no different than when Americans dropped a nuke on Japan. Is it Truman's fault or the pilots who dropped the bomb? A real leader would take responsibility for their subjects' actions, warts and all. But in the Titans case, that is Jamatov Hyman. If he survived, I couldn't see him bearing any responsibility for anything. However, in a modern geopolitical climate, there are thousands of people between the leaders and the bomb droppers helping make this decision. And in modern times, they all bear some responsibility, but will most likely be cowards and shift the blame to someone else. There, I said it. He asked if orders came directly from Bask. They didn't. He only ordered them to protect the rear fleet. Based on Captain Otto's commands, it didn't seem like he knew what Bask was up to either. It just appeared like a captain doing a favor for a commanding officer. Based on what he is hearing today, there is an error in records. They stop the interrogation for the day, and Eliard is escorted back to his cell. Conrad is bearing witness to the same thing that happened during the Delaz conflict. The Federation's MO is to put the blame on a small faction and shove it under the rug. In this case, the T3 team. This is going to be a hard one due to one crucial detail. Captain Otto went down with the ship. The one man who can corroborate this claim is dead. He doesn't want the Federation to repeat the same failures of the past. He needs to get into contact with other members of the T3 team. He looks up records of Commander Wes Murphy. He was injured and returned to the ship, where the captain then told everyone to abandon ship in a lifeboat. His lifeboat was saved, and he was taken to a Federation hospital, and the records stop there. Is he even still alive? He then searches Carl Matsubara. He was discharged, and then there was no record since he is no longer in the military. Audrey April's record is the same as Carl's. Time to find these people. And by find, I mean he calls his secretary Joanna to do all the work for him. Nice. No, he does some of the work. These searches came up empty as they couldn't find anything on the internet. He then decides to look up any potential teams that were arrested under unique circumstances around the same time as the T3 team. UC 0085. Carl Matsubara is piloting one of the new Hyzoks called the Bigwig. The YRMS 106BL85X Bizak TR2, informally known as the Bigwig, is built like a platform cannon in the vein of the Skier or the Burst Liner. It uses the Hyzak pre-production type as the base unit. They use the Hyzak instead of the GEM due to its modularity. Its generator diverts a lot of power to its beam cannon, and it has verniers specifically for controlling the attitude. It gets grumpy, not that attitude. Besides its main beam cannon, it also has a Bizak shield, which is slightly larger than the Hyzak shield, and also has its own attitude control verniers. It also has foot claws.
I mean, this is just one designer really wanting Megatron in Gundam, right? Under certain situations, the cannons are too powerful, and they will function more like boosters than cannons. He is also highly susceptible to snipers. They have to hurry and begin their launch. While Carl gets a new unit after his last one went down, his team is still holding the rear. They are informed by Bass that Neo-Zeon remnants have broken through their defenses, and the Aswan must intercept them. Eliard is currently in a Gym Kai when he hears Carl on the comms. He can't see Carl on the radars as the bigwig is such a long-range unit, and he probably is nowhere near him. They spot a Zanzibar with an old Xeon ID code that suggests these are tried and true veterans. Carl says he is firing. Eliard still can't pick him up on radar, so he rushes out of the way. Better hope he doesn't get in the way. A giant beam blast comes barreling through space. It misses the ship. His sights were slightly off. Carl recalibrates and prepares for another shot. Neo-Zeon launches their mobile suits. It is the F-Type Zaku and the Rickdom from the previous encounter. The team will hold off the mobile suits while Carl recharges. 3 more enemy mobile suits approach them, but they seem to be heading in the opposite direction. They notice that there is a civilian ship near the Zanzibar. They don't know what's happening, and there is a Zaku still rushing at him, so he has to react fast. They also ID a gym near the shuttle. Murphy yells out on the comms not to shoot. They can't hit civilians, as they have to maintain their pride as a Titan. I can't say it. I can't. I guess they are test pilots, so they don't know that their Titan brethrens are fascists. They let the shuttle pass by, but suddenly it explodes. Carl says that he didn't fire and thinks it was a gem tailing the shuttle. Suddenly, Murphy's talk about pride is gone, as he is now silent on the comms. They all return to the ship. Eliard doesn't know what just happened. Back on the ship, Otto congratulates him and says that Bask is proud of their actions. Otto has the biggest smile on his face, but Eliard has no idea what the hell is going on. Eliard returns to his cell. He grew up in the colonies and joined the Federation Forces Military Academy. Once the Titans were formed, that extra 1-rank promotion for just being a Titan member was quite appealing to all the young officers, and he was no exception. He always thought that in order to be a Titan, you had to be born and raised on Earth. But that isn't the case, as Eliard was accepted. He had heard rumors of the Titans simply being a private branch of the military, but ignored those ideas. He even saw Char's speech in Dakar, but brushed it off as the AUG taking advantage of a situation caused by Zeon remnants. But after this incident, and after meeting Comrade, perhaps it is time for Eliard to start fighting again instead of being resigned to solitary confinement. Neither Conrad nor Joanna can find any data on the T3 team. They just get redacted documents, or it has simply been deleted from the databases. He stumbles onto info regarding a Lieutenant Commander Pedro Mendoza. He is an old friend and in charge of personnel files at Dakar. He preps a charter plane for Africa. After being sent away many times, Mendoza realizes that it is his old friend Conrad. They seem to both be mobile suit pilots back during the 1-year war. He asks him about data regarding Carl, Wes, and Audrey. He tells him to look at the military files like he's some chump, but he can see right through him. All the files have to pass through Dakar, and thus pass through his hands. He refuses to tell Comrade anything. He is disappointed in his old friend, and he makes his leave. As he exits, Mendoza says that he hears rumors of some ex-military working as junkers for the Colony Public Corporation. He emphasizes that they are just rumors to wash his hands free of just giving out confidential information. Conrad says next time they meet, drinks are on him. July UC 0085. Eliard is heading out in a new unit. Everyone is giving him a hard time for being the rookie of the group. He is in the Hazel 2. The RX-121-2 Gundam TR-1 Hazel 2 is a modified version of the Jim Quell Hazel Reserve unit. What makes this different than the Hazel Reserve is the Tri-Booster unit. This is a high-powered thruster used in assault operations. It consists of 1 giant stern booster and 2 support boosters. The Hazel 2 was constructed in a hurry with extra parts from the original Hazel, as this was originally supposed to use Hazel as the base unit. However, with the same Gundam head as the Hazel, it's more or less the same. It, however, lacks the movable booster pod. This unit can also be configured to use the full armor form. Weapons include a beam saber, a shield, a beam rifle, a 90mm gem rifle, and multi-purpose launchers. This is just a training exercise. Carl is using the Gem Sniper 3 again, but this time he is using the cannon pack. The Gem Sniper 3 cannon pack adds medium-range support for the unit as it attaches a 240mm cannon used by the Gem cannon. Everything else about the Gem Sniper remains the same. Carl is also testing the Galbati Beta's shield during this test.
They head out. Eliard mentions that the Hazel II derives from the original GUNPLA Reserve Unit. The RGM-79Q GUNPLA Hazel Reserve Unit replaces the GEM head with the Gundam head, just like Hazel. The parts of this version can be replaced with the Hazel parts, though I believe this is true for all Quell variants. This unit will be modified enough to get its own designation to the Hazel II. He reminisces on the Gundam lineage. He even heard rumors of there being 3 Gundam units used during the Delaz conflict, even though there is no evidence of that happening. Regardless, he is now piloting a Gundam, and with that comes a sense of pride. Their comms aren't allowed during training exercises. A beam blast from Carl comes out of nowhere. Eliard hides behind an asteroid. The huge propellant tank on this unit is throwing Eliard off a little bit. He sees another beam blast. That gives away Carl's location, and he begins moving in. He has to move erratically to prevent being hit. He tries to shoot at Carl knowing he is out of range. Carl doesn't flinch. As the unit rushes, he hears Carl over the comms saying, "What's that?" They aren't allowed comms, so this is an emergency broadcast. He says this is not a drill, 3 mobile suits are approaching. Being in the GEM sniper gives them a far wider range. They have limiters set on their weapons. It is Federation protocol to not allow a pilot to change the limiter on the fly to prevent accidents. In other words, they are defenseless. It happens to be the Rikdam, Zaku, and Galgu commander unit with the Zaku shoulder spikes. Sure enough, these are the same guys from before, which means that the Zanzibar shouldn't be too far away. Why wasn't the Aswan able to pick them up? This shouldn't have been a problem. Carl shoots his sniper rifle at the 3 Zeon mobile suits. It wouldn't cause any damage, but it does make them scatter. The Gelgug and Rikdam head towards Carl. They have to think fast. He fires at them, hoping they don't realize his weapons are useless. The Zaku goes for Eliard. He tries to tackle the Zeon mobile suits, but it dodges. He pivots on a dime and is able to kick him. Char would be proud. The Zaku pulls out the Heat Hawk. He gets a voice inside his helmet to hold off for a moment. It is Wes Murphy on his way to help out. But it was only a second or two before Murphy appears in the Hazel's high mobility form with the 3 shields. The Rikdam is blown apart in an instant, and he goes towards the Gelgu. Eliard keeps clashing into the Zaku as his best weapon is simply ramming his mobile suit. The Gelgug is no ordinary pilot, as it is able to keep up with Murphy and shoots off his shoulder armor. But the Hazel fires, getting a critical hit. The Rikdam and Gelgug bail from their mobile suits, and they get a tow from the Zaku. The enemies make their retreat. Eliard is tense about the battle, but Murphy and Carl are calm and cracking jokes. He is starting to slowly get used to being on the battlefield. June, UC 0088. Eliard is taken by 2 guards. Today is the first day of his court-martial. He is taken to an EFF facility in a Jeep. This is the first time he has been outside in quite some time. On the battlefield, he feels like he has more control over his life and always seen it as a gamble. In the courtroom, he has to leave it in the hands of someone else. He enters into the courtroom where Comrade is waiting for him. He tells him to just do as he says. The chief judge is Commodore Georgy Milkov, and the prosecution is Captain John Gordon. Comrade tells Eliard that this man has been with the Intelligence Bureau his whole career, and he is a tough opponent to beat. John Gordon explains the 4 charges brought up against Eliard. The crime of participating in the Colony 30 incident, the willful and dangerous flight with the Nashimar, desertion in the face of the enemy during the Colony Laser battle, and the last being the personal destruction of a new weapon. They are about to ask him if he pleads guilty. Conrad tells him he can't sit on the fence on this one. He has to be firm in his answer. He listens and says not guilty to each charge as they are listed to him. The prosecution brings evidence to the court. Even Eliard found them to be convincing. After giving their evidence to the court, it is now the defendant's turn to do some cross-examination. But Comrade says that they have nothing to say. Eliard is stunned. Their next hearing will be in 1 week. Conrad tells them not to worry. He has found a weak point in the case. Eliard is taken back to his cell. On February 29th, the Grips War ended and Haman began her occupation of the colony. The Titans fell and the Federation began rebuilding. Many Titans and Zeon remnants fled to the arms of Axis, and Haman formed Neo-Zeon. Yes, some Titans fled to Axis. Like Zeon remnants, many had autonomy and chose different paths. We have also seen Zeon remnants working on their own, as seen in the beginning of Moon Gundam. We have also seen Titan remnants start a revolution, like what happens on Pizun. All this to say, it is UC 0088. The war with Haman's Neo-Zeon is still happening. When the Federation is at war, they tend to expedite court-martials. He needs to act fast. Things aren't currently stable for the Federation, which is weird to say considering a group of kids will ultimately be the ones who take down Haman. Conrad told Eliard that everyone has a weak point, but in reality he hasn't found that just yet.
He heads to the moon. Joanna plans on tagging along with him. They reserve 2 seats on a military shuttle. Since Haman's reign over the colonies, public shuttles have been spotty. There is no way he could get back to the moon in 1 week, so he asks for an extension. The Commodore denies his request at first, but eventually allows it when he says it pertains to the case. They will first head to Anaheim Electronics in Von Braun to consult with a subcontractor. Comrade explains that people tend to get what they call lunar sickness. This is caused by the change in gravity and causes hot flashes and sluggishness. Comrade, being a former pilot, acclimates quickly, but it hits Joanna hard. They stay at a civilian hotel instead of a military facility to prevent any friction from the top brass. On Von Braun, many of the subcontractors have their own subcontractors. The junkers in the lower levels of Von Braun are all subcontractors, usually not realizing that they are doing work for Anaheim Electronics because it's all been outsourced to death. Very early on, we covered developers Mobile Suit Gundam before 1 Year War, where although Zionic took all the glory for the Zaku, it was actually outsourced to a small family-run company called Haseoka Industries. A few days of exploring databases, and they get nothing. Comrade goes out on his own. He heads into a bar as he is getting nowhere. A man in the bar asks him for a drink in exchange for a story. The bartender says to ignore him, but he offers the drunk a beer. He says that he knows of the Gundam that was on the Aswan. Well, that was convenient. He says that he was a mechanic on the Aswan, and his name is Hendrik Ness. He could tell that Conrad was a soldier. Maybe this man has the answer he is looking for. August, UC 0085. Gabriel Zola is at his limits. His Zeon Remnant group is completely worn out, and hope is dying. He is overseeing maintenance on the Rikdom and Gelgoog. They have returned to Solomon. He once fought with Anival Gato. Many remnants don't mention his name as much anymore. Zola didn't end up helping out in Gato's rebellion, and now he is no longer around. He meets with Kazakh Larson. He is the Zaku pilot and the reason he is still alive. They need aid. They're considering joining the AU, but they seem to be stalling on their response. Certainly joining Haman would be the ideal option, but they seem uncertain on her ability as a commander. They spot the Aswan near Solomon and stay away as they have been a formidable opponent. They could have prevented the Colony 30 incident if it weren't for them. It shows that everything was kind of a gray zone and many sides were working to prevent fighting Federation oversight. And it wasn't all just the AE. As they fix his Rikdom, he tells the mechanics to paint the words Zeon Alive on his unit. The Aswan is orbiting Kombe Island, formerly Solomon. They head towards the outskirts where there is a shoal zone. Because of the Lagrange point near the moon, lots of debris clumps up around Solomon's outskirts. And of course, this is a perfect spot for Zeon remnants to hide. In our coverage of Gundam Pulitzer, we talked briefly on Lagrange points becoming these debris clusters where everything kind of clumps up. Go give that a listen. The Titans test team launches. Murphy heads out in the Hazel. Carl heads out in the Hyzak as his Gym Sniper 3 is being converted, and Eliard is in the Gym Kai. Carl keeps messing with Eliard. He keeps saying, "Oh no, it's a Zaku." "Nah, it's just debris." "Oh no, it's a Dom." "Nah, that's just a rock." Murphy tells him to stop doing that. This is Eliard's first time navigating through a shoal zone, and he is kind of on edge. One bad move, and you are done for. That is when Carl is hit by a beam blast out of nowhere. The attack barely misses his cockpit. Everyone spreads out, and Carl hides behind a rock and powers down his unit. Eliard spots a Gelgoog, and Murphy targets the Rikdom. Eliard fires, but the Gelgoog bobs and weaves in between some ice. Murphy is able to take out the Rikdom's arm. This gives Eliard the motivation to fight. Universal Century 0088. Comrade links up with Joanna, and the two head to Hendrik Ness's place, the man who claimed to work on the Gundam. His room smelled of cigarettes, alcohol, and sweat. They wonder if the Gundam had anything to do with the Mark II. He tells them that the Hazel is just a gem quail with a Gundam head and has nothing to do with the development of the Mark II. He wonders if he knows of Eliard Hunter. Hendrik says that he was a good boy. Conrad tells him that he is being court-martialed and that he is Jag. He tells him about the destroyed mobile suit, which is one of the charges brought up against Eliard, but he needs to know the why. It seems to be clear that this is the Federation hiding the fact that they allowed the Titans to control them. The Titans test team is an example of the Titans spending going out of control, and the Federation not being able to reel it in. In order to bury their embarrassment of letting the Titans run all over them, they need to hide the money trail, and that means burying the Titans test team mobile suits. The fact that it is a Gundam and the media putting so much attention on it is already enough reason to throw Eliard under the bus. Hendrik says that the majority of people fell with the Aswan, and only a few got away in lifeboats. Conrad wonders if he knows where Murphy is right now. He doesn't know, and can't think of anyone who would know. He then asks about Carl Matsubara and Audrey April. He becomes nostalgic and says that the two were a great part of the crew. Hendrik says that he has heard rumors of the two living somewhere on the moon, but he stops being helpful and his attitude changes once again. Comrade is tired of these games and says that if he doesn't hurry, Eliard will be executed. If he doesn't speak to Murphy, Carl, or Audrey, Eliard's life is over. He grows silent. Comrade asks if he is forbidden to speak of this. More silence. Comrade is tired of this, so he tells him that he goes to the bar every day and gets drunk and talks about the Gundam. That alone is enough to throw him in prison. He suggests that he stop feeling sorry for himself by shutting off the world and start acting by helping with this case. He thinks it over for a moment before telling Comrade that at the lower levels of Von Braun, he will find a man called King George. He will have the answer he is looking for. He goes to the lower levels where he finds King George at a sleazy pub after work. Comrade with Joanna asks about Carl and Audrey. He tells him about Eliard's case. King George says that he knows nothing other than what he has seen in the records, but he suggests that they ask that woman. He points to someone across the bar. It happens to be Audrey April. August, UC 0085. Eliard goes up against a Gelgoog. It seems like it is trying to toy with him. He hears Murphy in his ears saying it is a trap. Murphy is caught in a thin wire that completely traps him. Eliard comes to set him free, but Murphy tells him not to touch it. There seems to be a current running through it. Murphy is insulated inside the cockpit, but the joints are most likely shot. Eliard spots a third mobile suit. It is a Zaku. He shoots at the Zaku, but the Gelgoog comes in on his right side. He evades only to be met with the Rick Dom. He is outnumbered. Murphy tells him to pull back without him, but he doesn't listen. His rifle quickly depletes, and his armor is slowly falling apart on his Jim Kai. That is when Carl comes in with the Hyzak against Murphy's orders. He helps momentarily, but they are still outnumbered. Eliard takes the tattered Jim Kai and shields the Hazel. Pete Shelton is preparing Hazel 2, and Audrey gets into the mobile suit ready to launch. Pete tells her that it is only powered to 70%, but she thinks that is enough. On the PA system is Hendrik Ness telling her to take an extra energy pack with her. She gets on the catapult and launches. Eliard's beam rifle is finally out. He doesn't have any extra E-packs. Carl continues fighting with the Rick Dom. It becomes quiet and Eliard wonders if he is dead. The enemy stops their attack. Suddenly, Audrey comes on the radio asking if they are alive. The Xeon units begin panicking at the sight of another Gundam. Hazel 2 approaches Eliard. He gives him an E-pack and reloads it for him as he is missing one of his arms. Eliard begins firing at the Gelgoog. The enemy is now outnumbered and out of ammo. They pull back. Audrey chases for a little bit before Murphy pulls her back, telling her that their mission is over. The Hazel, Jim Kai, and Hyzak are pieces of scrap barely hanging in there. They head back to the Aswan. Commander Otto Peterson is looking at the destroyed mobile suits with the Titans test team standing at attention. They believe they are about to be chewed out for damaging the mobile suits. Otto asks Hendrik Ness if they are fixable. He says that he will make it happen. For the meantime, Eliard will use Hazel 2 and Murphy will use the Kihar. He doesn't end up chastising them. However, Murphy asks Eliard why he disobeyed his command. He says that he couldn't leave his commander, but he tells him that sometimes it is necessary and to obey commands next time. Eliard still isn't sure if that is the right move, but he obeys his commander anyways. UC 0088. Conrad approaches Audrey and asks her about Eliard. She claims to not know who she is. She tells him about his court-martial, but she insists that she doesn't know who he is. He then asks about Carl and Murphy, but gets nothing from her. She isn't going to budge. It is clear that she knows something about Eliard, but refuses to speak up. He takes a different approach and leaves. Everyone looks at him and Joanna as they leave the bar. They decide to find a hotel in the lower levels near the train station. They will turn in for the day. Conrad is actually in pain from his leg and is struggling, but he hides it well. As he dozes off, he hears a noise. It is a knock at the door. He asks who is it. It happens to be Audrey. As he lets her in, Joanna comes out, gun cocked and ready to go. But once she realizes that it is Audrey, they all head into Conrad's room. She says that they are under surveillance, which is why she said nothing. Conrad realizes how careless he was. Luckily, the people that are tailing her are low-level intelligence agents that are bored by this mission. She is willing to help Conrad as much as possible. She wasn't there when it all went down, but their unit withdrew from the battle. Eliard's gas plant was severely damaged, and Murphy was injured. Their flagship, the Aesmere, sank soon after retreating. Her statement matches with what is on record. Since Murphy was injured, Eliard was ordered to sortie in the Gundam. Since Audrey wasn't present, she can't really help with the charges of destroying a Gundam and desertion during the Colony laser, but she can help with the other charges. She wasn't aware of the Colony 30 incident as it was happening, and it seems to affect her even now. She wasn't aware that they were transporting G3 gas. However, they weren't the ones who unleashed it onto the Colony, and they only supported the rear. She mentions being attacked by the enemy. Audrey vaguely remembers spotting a Zaku 2FZ and a Rickdom, a part of the Zeon Remnants group. She also mentions that Otto Peterson wasn't even aware of what was going on under his command. Her testimony will be very helpful, but they need proof. Audrey says that the Aswan was at Compay Island, which would prove they were always in the rear and nowhere near Colony 30. He could work with this. August, UC 0085. While the mechanics work non-stop to get the mobile suits up and running again, the test pilots are actually able to get some rest for the first time in a while. Audrey helps out the mechanics. Even though she isn't one, she is always working with them. They're leaving Compay Island and testing out the new Ashimar Kihar, specifically the space type. The NRX 044R prototype Ashimar TR3 Kihar space type is a variant of the original Ashimar. The transformation system is incredibly complex, so EFF creates this space variant to get things right under 0G. After they work out all the kinks, they will then test it in Earth's atmosphere. In this case, that will be the prototype Kihar. Thermonuclear engines are on each leg, and it gives the unit enormous amounts of thrust. The skirt is fitted with additional thrusters for attitude control. Weapons include a spread beam gun used by the Dom, a beam rifle, and beam emitters. Eliard and Carl are hanging out in the rec room while they head out to the testing location. Carl was being more vulnerable than usual as he talks about how he was scared on the previous mission. He too was also scared, but once he went into action, Eliard felt something else that wasn't fear. Carl thinks that perhaps he is a new type. Murphy comes in and tells them to go on standby. Eventually, Eliard launches in the Hazel 2. Eliard's conversation with Carl makes him feel like he is finally not only a part of the team, but something even greater. Carl's Gem Sniper 3 is also hanging on the Kihar. Eliard grabs onto the TR3 and they head out. The Ashimar transforms and Eliard and Carl begin attacking the prototype. Even its transformation is swift. Murphy tells him that if you don't tame the Hazel, it will be your downfall. Eliard uses his high mobility backpack to pick up speed. It isn't a matter of learning the ropes with the Hazel. He still has a lot of catching up to do with the Titans test team. While talking to Audrey, they hear a noise outside, followed by a knock at the door. Joanna has her gun pointed and ready to go. She opens it to find that it is King George. They first think that he is one of the people who is tailing her, but it isn't the case. They let him in and Joanna pats him down to make sure he isn't carrying. He wonders why he is telling her, but he says that he can know where anyone is in the depths of Von Braun with just one phone call. He also says he wouldn't trouble himself with anything EFF. He just wants to know what's going on in his neighborhood. There is a confrontational back and forth between King George and Conrad before Audrey breaks the tension between the two. She says that he is just looking out for the town. He isn't sure if he could trust him still, but he also seems like a valuable source of data. He lets King George know about Eliard's trial and how EFF is trying to bury this new Gundam. He was once a soldier, a part of the Supply Corps. He once yearned to be a mobile suit pilot, but when that never happened, he left the military. He says he is an ally of Hendrik and Audrey, and he could help find her other comrades. Conrad wasn't expecting him to be willing to help in this capacity. He unfortunately can't wait around and has to return to Earth, but they will be in contact if they hear anything regarding the whereabouts of Murphy and Carl. He wonders how he is going to get Audrey off the moon. Conrad says with the power of a subpoena. October, UC 0085. The Zanzibar is in the L3 orbit near Solomon. Zola refers to it as Solomon even though it is now Compay Island. He looks up at the three mobile suits. One thing I never mentioned is that the Rickdom, Zaku, and Gelgoog all use the Stetzer loadout. The Stetzer loadout is designed to take on Titan's high-end mobile suits. Zeon Remnants had minimal resources, so they have been heavily modified. The Gelgoog has an enhanced winch used for defensive purposes. The head has a wire cutter, and the back has been replaced with extra propellants. The Rickdom and Zaku also have the winch unit and extra thrusters, but the Zaku uses a modified Gelgoog beam rifle. It gets supplies from sympathizers in the colony, but that has its limits. He received intel that the Titans has a new frontline base at Side 7 that they refer to as Grips. The Earth Orbital Fleet and Luna 2 Fleet are sufficient. The only reason for them to create Grips is because they are going to be advancing on space noids. He wonders why the Federation allows this from the Titans. They have become nothing more than an escort service, while the Titans handles most of the Federation business now. He talks to his comrade Larson, who he has been fighting with for some time now. He says that it looks like Axis is in their future. Zola and Larson get into their mobile suits. The pilot of the Zaku is named Shorter. They take off and are instantly met with an Alexandria-class ship. 2 mobile suits and 1 unidentified mobile armor. Eliard is holding on to the Keyheart in mobile armor form. He is in Hazel 2 and starting to get the hang of the Gundam. Eliard gets in close and shoots the Zaku at point-blank range. The thrusters of the Keyheart are throwing off Murphy, and he transforms into mobile suit form. He moves in on the Gelgoog and the Zaku. He crashes into the Gelgoog. It destroys the Keyheart's thrusters, but also takes out the Gelgoog's head. The Zaku and Gelgoog are out. They close in on the Rickdom. Wes Murphy and Zola tell each other their names over the comms, before Zola rushes back to the Zanzibar. Did they just let Zola flee? They pretty much had him surrounded. Confusing. The Titans test team heads back to the Aswan, where Captain Otto Peterson takes Murphy off the Keyheart. They still need to test atmospheric re-entry on the Keyheart, but repairs on his Gundam are complete. This is now the Hazel Custom. The RX-121-1 Gundam TR-1 Hazel Custom is the repaired version of Murphy's Hazel, with added battle data from the Titans test team. Everything in the Hazel was an afterthought, as it was built on top of the Jim Quell. This makes the unit more balanced and more in line with the original specs. This is the first unit to have the 360 panoramic monitor, and it also retains the movable booster pod and subarm. Other weapons include a beam saber, Vulcans, the XBR M84A beam rifle, and the long blade rifle. This unit also has a sniper unit and a sub-arm unit, which we will talk about at another time. Eliard launches in Hazel 2, Murphy in Hazel Custom, and Carl in the Gem Sniper 3. The two ask Murphy how is the new unit. He is struggling to get used to the panoramic monitor with linear cockpit. He notes that this is the first unit to have this panoramic cockpit layout. When they get back from their test, Audrey asks Murphy a bunch of questions. She says with this test data, he will help usher in the next generation of mobile suit cockpits. This is before the Rick Diaz and the Hyzak, which has this as a standard few years later. June UC 0088. Conrad is trying to get Audrey and Hendrik to Earth, but they aren't allowed on the shuttle as Federation soldiers are claiming he can't bring civilians on a military shuttle, even though he has a subpoena. Joanna mentions they are probably going to miss their flight. They are trying to run out the clock. They can't officially stop them, but they can make them jump through hoops until they miss their court date. The fact that the Federation is already onto them is making them tense. He grows tired and goes up to their commander, who is a lieutenant. He tells him that he is violating many Federation laws by holding them, and he can have them court-martialed. This strong-arm move doesn't always work, but in this case, it does. The lieutenant panics and allows them to board the shuttle. On board, Comrade and Joanna make a list of journalists they could trust to get the word out there. If he leaks intel, the Federation will most certainly execute him, but he is ready for that burden. He also believes that the Federation is being backed into a corner. He says that the Federation must drain the swamp. Interesting choice of words on the translation. He heads back to the Bureau, where he is called into Commodore Southwell's office. He asks what he is doing. His job is just to get Eliard a better plea bargain, but Comrade said he is simply doing the best he can for his client. The Commodore tells him to tread lightly and that he can't help him if things go south. This gives Conrad more confidence that they are backing EFF into a corner. Comrade takes Audrey and Hendrik to his home in Carson City. They spent hours recording their testimony. At midnight, everyone goes to bed. Comrade wakes up and hears a noise. He takes off the safety on his gun and heads into the living room, where he sees a shadow. Someone fires on Comrade. He ducks behind the sofa and returns fire. There is a second intruder who begins firing as well. Comrade shoots again, causing them to flee. He only had 2 shots left. Both shooters shot twice. These shooters are coordinated and trained, most likely soldiers. He goes to check on Audrey and Hendrik, who is okay. The MPs are on their way. It is clear the Federation is making moves to prevent this case from winning. They have to go on the offensive. UC 0085. The Titans test team is moving into low Earth orbit. Eliard is in the Keyheart. The NRX 044 prototype Ashimar TR3 Keyheart is a variant of Ashimar. Last time, we talked about how the Federation tests in space before moving into testing in Earth's atmosphere. Now that their space testing is done, the Titans test team now moves on to Earth testing. The 2 thermonuclear engines in the legs serve as Keyheart's main propulsions. Weapons include a spread beam gun and a beam rifle similar to the Dom's beam rifle. 23 minutes until they rendezvous with the shuttle. Everyone gazes at the blue oceans as they break through the atmosphere. They eventually make contact with the shuttle, but they also come into contact with a debris cluster. Carl begins vaporizing the debris. A giant debris cluster comes barreling towards them, destroying their shields. The Kihar has minor damage, but they're able to make it to the shuttle. They note that one piece of the debris looked like a chunk of a Gelgoog from the 1 Year War, and even now, traces of the war are trying to kill them. They get into the shuttle and descend to Earth. July UC 0088. Eliard is taken to the site of his hearing. Remember, Comrade said he would see him in a few days, and then got an extension on his court date. So Eliard was left in the dark for the past 2 weeks. He enters the court where he meets Conrad. He is relieved, but wonders why it has been so long. Conrad tells him he went to the moon. Captain Gordon begins and glares at Eliard. Comrade tells him to glare back and show confidence. They both straighten their backs as Gordon brings forth the first piece of evidence. Exhibit A is the battle logs from Eliard's Gym Type C high mobility type. It shows that he sortied from the moon heading to Side 1. He then has logs that shows that he sortied again around Compe Island. Comrade objects and asks that he points out some relationship between the logs and the Colony 30 incident. Gordon then shows a testimony from a former Titans transport crew member that shows they were carrying G3 gas. The timestamps for Eliard's second sortie matches closely with the Colony 30 incident. The second sortie also is highly suspicious at this time of operation. The Commodore asks Comrade if there's anything he wants to add. He says that all evidence must be given to the council beforehand, and because of this, the evidence shouldn't be admissible. He asks a question to the officers of the tribunal. If you were given orders, what would you do? Most certainly, you would follow those orders. Eliard was simply doing what any soldier would do in a situation. Gordon then begins questioning Eliard. He gives his answers as he remembers, but even he was vague on certain things. Anytime he was vague, Gordon would come down on him hard, trying to find something to work with. He tells him that he couldn't confirm coordinates as it was a visual battle and Minovsky particles and whatnot. He mentions that he is trying to hide that Xeon remnants were at Side 1. Conrad objects, saying Gordon is speculating, but the Commodore overrules it. This happens a couple of times. Conrad then questions Eliard and asks similar questions to Gordon, but reframes it to show that he had no idea of the orders that were being carried out. Later, Conrad calls a witness. Eliard turns around to find that it is Audrey April. October UC 0085. At the Federation Forces Khartoum base, Eliard is testing the Kihar. They're testing the thermonuclear engines in mobile suit form in Earth atmosphere. There are many regular Federation officers watching this test. Eliard tells Roberto Bernardo that gravity is terribly inconvenient for mobile suits. He inputted the coordinates to the drop zones in his computer. Someone from his team is coming down with a new machine. Bernardo tells Eliard that he is veering off course, but his computer says that he is fine. He adjusts 3 degrees. He tries to make visual contact with his target. However, he seems to stumble across Xeon remnants working with Karaba instead. Eliard mentions that Bernardo is trying to isolate him and get him killed. It seems to be Goofs and a Dodai. He is at a disadvantage. The Goof on the Dodai fires on him. He notes that there are Goofs built for the sky. This is because they are Goof flight types. As he begins his attack on Xeon remnants, Eliard feels that his sights are off. Bro needs to compensate for gravity. This is the first time being in a dogfight in Earth's atmosphere, so he just looks at the sun to get his bearings. Suddenly, shots come from space. He hears Carl on the comms, who didn't expect Eliard would be piloting the Kihar. Carl used long-range weapons to help Eliard. He is still 3 minutes out before making contact. He is piloting the Dandelion. I did like 5 takes of that. You just can't make the word Dandelion sound intimidating. Anyways, the RX-107 TR-4 Dandelion is a prototype atmospheric reentry module. At its core, this mobile suit is the Rosette, with an atmospheric module developed around it. It has a mobile suit form and a mobile armor form, but the pilot doesn't switch between forms depending on its needs. Rather, it oscillates between the 2 forms based on the circumstances. Its parts can be detached, leaving just the Rosette. Of course, it has an atmospheric reentry form, which could store 1 extra mobile suit. When on Earth, it can function as a sublight system. Its mobile suit form looks like a chicken had sex with a Hyzak. Weapons include a long-range beam rifle and a claw arm. July UC 0088. Eliard said Audrey's name as he saw her in the flesh. This is his first confirmation that she is even still alive, and assumed he would just never know. Conrad says she is why he took so long and had to extend his court date. The Commodore beckons the prosecutor and defendant. Before approaching the judge, Conrad says this is their first attack to Eliard. Captain Gordon is caught off guard by Audrey. He tries to protest the witness, but is brushed off. Conrad begins his testimony. Audrey goes on the stand. He begins asking her how she knows Eliard. She tells them how they were both a part of the Titans test team on both the Aswan and the Izmir. Gordon objects and says that she is a civilian and has no position to discuss military operations. This was pointless and overruled. Conrad asks about the escort mission in July of 0085. Audrey explains that the Titans test team launched from Side 1. Eliard launched in the Jim Kai, Murphy in the Hazel, and Carl in the Jim Sniper 3. They escorted a transport ship where they encountered Xeon remnants. Once the mission was over, the captain got orders to support Basque. She corroborates that the team knew nothing of the G3 gas they were transporting. Gordon objects, stating that the defense is trying to elicit unverifiable facts out of the witness, but he is overruled. He asks about mobile suit propellants and how mobile suits operate. Audrey says that a mobile suit propellant wouldn't last long. A ship is essential to operate a mobile suit, and they can't fly from side to side like a ship. Meanwhile, in Cosmic Era, he confirms that after the mission, they returned to Aswan, orbiting the moon, and then went to Compe Island. He says, would it be not possible for a mobile suit to get from Compe Island to Site 30 in a mobile suit? She says no. Conrad puts her testimony instantly into evidence. This should handle the evidence against Eliard's first charge. He has to work on the remaining 3. But before moving on to the other charges, Gordon gets to question Audrey. UC 0085. The TR-4 breaks through the atmosphere and immediately transforms into Chicken Hyzak mode. Eliard tells him that there is 1 goof on a Dodai and 3 goof flight types. Commander Bernardo is still showing contempt for the Titans test team on the comms. The goof fires at the Dandelion. Eliard notes that these mobile suits are relics from the 1-year war, but their formation and tactics are still on point. They also don't seem to second-guess jumping around in gravity like Eliard currently is. Bernardo mentions some textbook maneuver nonsense, but talks about Amado Ray in the process. This inspires Eliard as he is on the defensive with the remnants. He remembers Amado's giant jump technique from the 1-year war, and he does something similar with the Kihar. He jumps on the Dodai in mobile suit form and bounces around, letting gravity do the heavy lifting. This works as the Xeon Remnant formation is broken by the sporadic maneuvers. Carl uses this opportunity to go after the Dodai. They go on a chase before the TR-4 grips its claws into the Dodai. Like a bird, the Dandelion drops down to earth and lets go of the Dodai, crashing it down to the ground. The goofs begin to panic and retreat. The team is too tired to go after them. Besides, their mission is accomplished. The Dandelion is a success. UC 0088. Gordon begins with questioning Audrey about her knowledge of the Colony 30 incident. He goes into detail about how there was an AUG base on the colony, but because of the actions of maybe 2%, the Titans punished the entire colony. Conrad objects as it doesn't pertain to the witness at hand, but it is overruled. Gordon then guilt trips her into assuming responsibility simply for being a Titan. Conrad objects again, and this time it is sustained. The Commodore tells him to focus on the charges at hand. However, the judge frowned when saying this. He gets into the details about the mobile suit traveling from one side to another. He then notes that they are a test team. Certainly there is a loadout that would allow a mobile suit to traverse from one colony to another. This puts Audrey on the defensive. He asks her to answer yes or no, and she says yes, it is possible, but logistically improbable. He then inquires about Captain Otto Peterson's involvement with Basque. Audrey starts getting anxious. She says that the Aswan captain said it would involve operational maneuvers outside of Colony 30, and that it would be a good idea to get on Basque's good side. Gordon latches onto this. He says that that statement implies that Otto is most likely in on Basque's operation. She pleads ignorance of his intentions. She asks, why would Otto send him out to help Basque right after a mission? That seems a little excessive. Conrad objects and says Gordon is attempting to confuse the witness. His questioning is limited. She tells him that she learned of the Colony 30 incident on the internet just like everyone else. He pushes her a little harder, and she admits that she heard rumors on the private internet. Conrad objects once more for goading the witness before the prosecution rests their case. Audrey gets off the stand. Before leaving the courtroom, she gives Eliard a slight nod. It was the only thing she could really give him in the moment, but that was enough to give Eliard hope. UC 0085. Eliard's Kihar and Carl's Dandelion are on their way back to the base. Doing what is coined the Amado Ray's aerial combat was rough on his body. Your spine is never the same after that. He picks up 2 objects on the radar. Bernardo comes on the comms and tells them not to lead remnants back to the base and to take them out. Eliard doesn't have much energy in his rifle. He stops on a dime and turns around. This frustrates him while in Earth's atmosphere as he takes G's to the face. Someone teach this guy how to do a wide turn? Bro, it's called lift. There are 2 Dodais and 2 Goofs. They have to be conservative with their weapons and make every shot count. They take evasive action and let them attack first. The Dandelion is bigger than the Dodai, and bigger targets stand out more. Eliard fires a few rounds. The Dandelion and Goof clip each other and does damage to the outer armor. Carl purges the armor on the T4. He goes into somewhere in between mobile armor and mobile suit form, and he begins doing the Amida Ray technique. One Dodai shoots a missile and takes out Carl's shield. He then purges the shield. Eliard shoots and takes out the Dodai. The Goof jumps off just in time. As the Goof touches down, it goes silent. Eliard mentions in flight school, you learn that landing is the most important thing, and improper landing can be deadly. Damn, that Goof pilot just accidentally crushed his own spine. Carl takes out the final Dodai. Eliard sees the mobile suit. Once all of the armor is purged, it essentially becomes Rosette. The RX-107 Rosette is the successor to the RMS-106 Hyzac. It is equipped with a movable shield and capable of carrying 4 energy pack holders. This is the core unit for the Dandelion and has a special frame and backpack when this is equipped. Weapons include a scattering beam gun, a beam rifle, and a 120mm cannon, which also contains the Gatling Smasher. After taking care of the remnants, Eliard requests an extraction to pick up all of the Dandelion's purged parts. They don't bring help, and Bernardo tells them to handle it themselves. This causes Eliard to break. He speeds back to the base and fires a warning shot near the command center. He asks, once again, for an extraction point, and Bernardo finally obliges. Eliard knows that he's going to be thrown in the brig for that one, but it was satisfying, and so was. As the day is adjourned, Conrad tells Eliard, after being amazed at the sight of Audrey, that she too has been living a hard life on the moon. He mentions that for his second crime in Africa, they may need to call the air traffic controller for a witness. He realizes that he is referring to Roberto Bernardo. The only other person that would corroborate Bernardo being a dick that day would be Carl Matsubara. Conrad heads back to his place, where he is housing Audrey and Hendrik. The old man thinks that the outcome is already decided, but Conrad says not on his watch. As the three are talking, Joanna comes in and gives him a printout of an email from King George. He looks at the printout and passes it to Audrey. Carl is dead. He was working for the Colony Public Corporation when he had an accident a few days ago. King George is sending a Xeon messenger to Earth. Hendrik starts to play the blame game, but Audrey says their focus has to be on Eliard. They wonder what this messenger from Xeon is bringing. Conrad thinks that perhaps it is simply someone from Carl's estate, or perhaps they are bringing personal evidence that the Federation killed him and setting it up as an accident. Conrad wants to know everything about the mission in Africa. Audrey mentions that he was thrown in solitary confinement for 3 days due to egregious violations of flight regulations. Him being in solitary wasn't on record, and Eliard didn't mention anything about it. He wonders if this was covered up. They go over the details when the doorbell rings. Joanna has her gun ready in case anything goes down. He answers the door to see a young man hiding his face. He doesn't want to be seen by anyone. They let him in and wonder if they have news regarding Carl's death. He takes off his cap and Audrey lunges towards him. This causes Conrad to panic, but she is just hugging him. It happens to be Carl Matsubara. Commander Bernardo punches Eliard in the face before throwing him in solitary. He tells Eliard to reflect while in there, but all he thinks about was how the real last battle that the Federation fought was the Delaz conflict, and how Bascom, a Titan, carried the battle. He is released after 7 days, where he is met with Wes Murphy. He tells Bernardo not to interfere and to go through the proper channels if he wants to court-martial Eliard. He silences Bernardo, and the Titans ultimately will do what they need to test their mobile suits. Before Eliard could speak, Murphy gives him a good old bright slap. He tells him not to point his weapon at their own men. He says what he did is dishonorable. They don't have time to mess around. They have to do more tests on the Kihar. Most of the testing has already been done. The only thing to test is mid-air mobile armor to mobile suit transformation, and vice versa. Eliard is finally understanding the concept of lift after being on Earth for a little bit. They finish up their testing and head back to base, where Carl and Eliard goes to the bar. Carl asks him about solitary when Murphy comes in and gets a drink as well. He asks about Eliard using Amida Ray's test data. He mentions that most people learn from the past, but very few put it into practice like Eliard just did. All they have left to do is some testing on the Dandelion. They wonder if they will head back to Kompe Island, but it seems like the Titans are about to make moves. Murphy asks if they heard of Grips. It appears they have their own mobile suit testing going on there, separate from what the Titans test team is doing. The next day, they finally finish their testing. UC-0088. Conrad is stunned. Audrey and Hendrik is certain that this is Carl. Once he got word from King George, he didn't want to take any chances, so he faked his own death, and then came to find them. Conrad thinks that this is extreme, but it will allow the Federation to let their guard down. Carl says that this isn't just a trial. The Federation is dead set on killing ex-Titans members. Ever since the Pazoon incident, the Federation is tightening down in case of a Titans uprising. This of course is referring to Gundam Sentinel. And yes, I know I have to get back to covering it. Shut up. Like Eliard, Carl too thought of himself as the best of the best. Or as the writer puts it, the vanguard of the Federation. But it turns out that the Federation always despised them. Conrad is going to ensure that a fair trial takes place. He can see the fire in Carl's eyes. He has been struggling, or has some sort of internal conflict, since the end of the Grips conflict. They begin filling Carl in on everything. Since Eliard did point his weapon in Africa, there might not be anything that Carl could do about that particular charge. Eliard gets dragged out of his cell once again. He notices that Bernardo is going to be on the stand today. Gordon begins questioning the base commander, who recalls Eliard disobeying his orders. Everything that Bernardo is saying is true, but it is leaving out the fact that the commander left Eliard for dead and to fend off the Zeon remnants on his own. He ends his questioning and allows Conrad to begin his own. Conrad focuses on the lack of reinforcements that Bernardo didn't send out. He says that they didn't have any men to spare, but Conrad notes that they had 2 teams of GIMs deployed at Khartoum base. This causes Bernardo to stumble on his words. He asks if he disciplined Eliard at the base, and he says no. He has no further questions, and then calls to the stand Carl Matsubara. Like Audrey's appearance, the appearance of Carl riles up the courtroom. On the stand, he tells the court how they asked for reinforcements and they were denied. He then goes on about how they had to take down the remnants, pursuing them back to base. He talks about purging his armor. After fighting, they requested backup to help with armor recovery, but was denied once again. Carl explains that Eliard did point his rifle at the control room, but after 2 consecutive battles, he knew, and Eliard knew, that his rifle was completely depleted. He couldn't actually fire the rifle if he wanted to. He asks what happened next. He explains that Eliard was put into solitary confinement, which contradicts Bernardo's statement earlier. Conrad has no further questions. During his questioning, Gordon objected due to off-topic questioning, and the Commodore threatened to remove the defense. Conrad says to Eliard that he did this to send a message that they aren't backing down. Gordon begins questioning Carl and tries to get him to think that his perception is off. Conrad instantly objects. He says that there are no records to prove these statements that he is claiming. Carl makes a snarky comment back, saying then Bernardo's statements also can't be proven. The Commodore pounds his gavel and tells Carl not to make remarks, just answer the questions. Conrad notes that Gordon is just stalling. He has no further questions. The witnesses are dismissed, but the Commodore chastises Bernardo for perjuring himself. January, UC-0086. The team has returned to the Aswan. Once they returned to space, they had little downtime and became quite busy. The mechanics are adding more subarms to the Hazel Custom. This will allow them to operate multiple beam rifles at the same time. Carl thinks it is impossible, but Pete the mechanic says that it is possible when there are more than 2 people in the unit. Carl is going out in the Hyzak and Eliard is running patrol in the Hazel 2, while the other 2 conduct tests. They head out and are happy to be free from gravity. Wes Murphy is piloting the new Hazel Custom subarm unit. The subarm unit contains multiple subarms that appears like the unit's skirt. This can be used to carry weapons like a beam saber or a beam rifle, but it is more effective at reloading energy packs, which allows the main arms to focus on the battle. This is barely used because it requires a skilled pilot to use. Murphy deploys an arm with it holding a beam rifle. He begins the test when mobile suits approach them. They are friendlies, Titans and Hyzaks. Murphy asks them to state their purpose, but gets no response. That is when the Aswan tells them to pursue and track the units. Murphy allows them to open fire around them, but not to hit them. Eliard has them in his sights, but they turn around and begin firing on him. Even with them firing, they have to capture them and can't risk hitting them. The 2 Hyzaks are able to make their escape. There has to be a ship tagging along with them close by, and wonder if they are in the nearby shoal zone. This all seems very fishy to Eliard. UC-0088. They head back to Conrad's place. They are starting to get the upper hand, but things are still grim. Getting the remaining charges dropped are going to rely on Hendrik's help. They decide to have dinner. Carl was one of the lowest ranks in the Colony Public Corporation. These people are the expendables who suffer from radiation poisoning and decompression sickness at the expense of maintaining the colonies. Audrey had a similar fate, scrounging for scraps in the lowest levels of the moon. They were suffering while the higher echelons of the Federation, the ones who should be taking responsibility for the actions of the Titans, live in luxury. This has always been the case with war, as people in power aren't the people on the ground. A tale as old as time. Joanna tells Conrad that the MPs reported that the people who broke into his house were thieves. Of course, it seems they are covering up for that as well. This is just another mistake that the Federation made, which they could use to their advantage. They need to prove that these were Federation soldiers and not thieves. Earlier, Joanna collected a list of journalists they could trust. They're going to leak the story of the attack. Conrad then shifts back to the Aswan crew and says that he needs to know everything about the Phantom Gundam, UC 0086. After the testing of the subarm Hazel, the team enjoyed a relatively peaceful New Year. However, after the Colony 30 incident, the AU got funding and amassed their own army. The Titans are now beginning operations to take down the AUG. Audrey has been hearing rumors on the internet that the zombies are planning their revival of Zeon. Eliard has a feeling that these tiny skirmishes are about to become a war. February UC 0086. Rumors run rampant on the Aswan regarding the Titans insurgents. Carl and Eliard took great pride in being a Titan, so the fact that people would be rising up is foreign to them. Compilation Island is near Side 6 and Side 1, but one cannot reach their location without a carrier or shuttle of the sorts. For the first time, it seems Eliard is questioning the Titans. Then Mechanic Pete mentions that they are sending over a Galbaldi Beta from Luna 2. Usually they would send the unit and leave it to the Titans test team to test it, but the Federation is sending one of their own people. Murphy introduces the team to Maxim Gunner. Murphy and Maxim happen to have fought alongside one another during the Delaz conflict. Maxim thanks the colony for supporting them in the rear during the colony incident. He's been helping out Basque's team. Apparently, he was a Titans recently until he was kicked out. Eliard still wonders what is up with the civilian shuttle and the Zanzibar. He also has so many questions about that day. He tells them that Zeon remnants are laying low because of the AUG, as they have moved from being a movement to an army. 16 hours later, both the Titans test team and the Federation team launches as they spot an unidentified ship approaching. Eliard heads out in the Hazel 2, but as he launches, suddenly the Galbaldi Beta launches as well without permission. July UC 0088. Conrad is talking to Hendrik about the legacy of the Gundam. The Titans test team, like Grips, were playing around with adding the legendary Gundam to their arsenal, but Compilation Island's approach is different. They put a Gundam head on a gem. The power of adding a head did such tremendous psychological influence, as it helped draw out the Zeon remnants. Carl mentions that he didn't get to pilot a Gundam until later, unlike Murphy and Eliard. Murphy gained notoriety during the Battle of Solomon. Hendricks mentions that the Gundam development changed after the colony incident, but conflict with the AU went from minor to full-out war after the Gundam was stolen at Green Noah 1. This of course is talking about Camille and the Mark II. The team didn't even know about the mobile suit being stolen. After the AU started using the Hyakushiki, it was clear that the symbol that once belonged to the Federation now belongs to the AU. The Federation wanted to distance themselves from the Gundam image, which is why development on Compilation Island changed. Of course, the Titans test team were oblivious to all of this at the time. Conrad wants to know about the type of Gundams being developed at Compilation Island. That is when Joanna gets a phone call, and she tells them to call back on a secure line. They are investigators with regards to the people who broke into Conrad's home last volume. It appears the two intruders are federal soldiers named Kelly Brown and Thomas Tyler, and are stationed here at Nevada base. Their commander is named Jeffrey Portman. Conrad seems to know him. Portman was once stationed on the moon and is known to be more Spacenoid-leaning while detesting the Titans. He was under Commodore Milkov. There's a direct line to the person in charge of the court-martial. Conrad is certain that they are after Audrey and Hendrik, but is uncertain if this is an order from above or someone acting on their own. They wonder if they even have a chance. They're still working with some journalists to leak info and decide to leak the names of these soldiers. Even if the Federation controls all of the media on Earth, which they don't, they can't possibly control the flow of information from the colonies. Conrad doesn't think Milkov has anything to do with this. It's probably all Portman's doing. February UC 0086. The Titans test team is told to capture the Galbaldi Beta. This is specifically the high mobility type. The RMS 117 Galbaldi Beta high mobility type is a prototype mobile suit. It mounts the booster pod that is also on the Hazel with the help of the unit's hardpoints, which makes it a high mobility type. This also equips a 240mm cannon and 3-tube missile pod. It has an apogee binder and can optionally mount a disc radome system, which helps in high Minovsky particle density. It has the machine gun Kai, which is a reverse-engineered version of Xeon's 120mm machine gun. Other weapons include a beam saber, a beam rifle similar to the Gelgoogs, an extendable shield with a missile launcher, and the smart beam gun that will later be used by the Zeku Eins. Carl has the opportunity to shoot it down right now, but they have to capture it. They pick up a signal from the unidentified vessel saying they are 7 minutes out. It seems someone stole the unit and is fleeing to the ship. The Garibaldi will most likely have to use all of its propellant to adjust its course with the ship. He reaches out to the pilot. It happens to be Maxim. He says that he isn't returning to a Titans-controlled EFF. Eliard realizes the unidentified ship is an Ayug vessel. He tells him to turn back. Eliard still has a clear shot. Maxim fires at Eliard, causing Carl to fire at him. The Garibaldi dodges, but it tries to use as little propellant as possible. Eliard calls the Ayug terrorists, but Maxim states that it is the Titans who are the terrorists. He says that he experienced it himself. He doesn't know what experience Maxim is referring to. UC 0088. Joanna has passed intel onto the journalists. Now they just have to wait for someone to pick up their stories. They wonder if the journalists will work fast enough, as the court-martials are moving fast. Conrad trusts in the judicial system to fix it, but the others aren't confident. They look at him awkward, going, "You just told us every reason why not to trust them. Why are you trusting them?" A Ryu Kirishima is talking to his editor, Michael Chang. He tells him about the story regarding Conrad. He doesn't seem interested in the drama of the court-martial, but instantly becomes interested once he learns that it involves a Gundam pilot. The name of the game at this tabloid is Sensationalism Over Journalism, or articles about the Gundam sells newspapers. But when he hears that Eliard is a part of the Titans, he starts to lose interest. He wants to run the story as an attempt by the Federation to silence the Gundam pilots. They want to erase the fact that the Titans created and operated the Gundam. Not only that, they want to erase the memory of the disgraceful past where the Earth Federation forces were controlled by the Titans. They are afraid that their exploits with tinkering with the Gundam will get out to the public. The Gundams created on Green Noah 1 were created by Anaheim Electronics. Ryo believes that some kind of deal happened between Anaheim Electronics and the Federation that made EFF halt their Gundam production on Compay Island. Something similar seemed to have happened with AE after the Delaz conflict as well. Ryu says that it isn't a story about the Gundam. This is about collusion between Anaheim Electronics and EFF. The editor tells him to have a first draft on his desk ASAP. UC 0086. Eliard was aware that the Ayug was gaining considerable power. However, the Ayug was still a new force. There shouldn't have been enough time to groom Maxim as a spy. They brought the Garibaldi with them for testing. So this is all not adding up for Eliard, as Murphy and Maxim were former comrades. He has remained silent since Maxim defected. March, UC 0087. 1 year has passed. The Ayug have only gained more support since Maxim defected. Everyone on the Aswan gathered in front of the TV broadcasting the news. There's a battle happening at the L3 point, where both Side 7 and Luna 2 are located. They realize the fight with the Ayug are no longer small insurgencies. They are full-scale wars. Carl believes that since the Ayug are backed by corporations, they are just corporate shills trying to help the rich control the world. Eliard seems to believe the same thing. They get called into a briefing. Everyone is tense as they are about to get dragged into war. Many, I'm sure, are still recovering from their one-year war PTSD. Some cut the tension by joking around, as they know this briefing is going to involve war. Captain Otto Peterson comes into the briefing room. He tells the team that they are leaving Compay Island and heading towards Earth's satellite orbit. There, they will receive parts for a new mobile armor. They will also help fortify Earth's defenses. He says to prepare for battle in low Earth orbit. While they head to Earth, the GRIPS defense team is heading to Luna 2 to fortify the asteroid. However, everyone still has one lingering question. What was the direct reason for the Titans and the Ayug starting the fight? Unfortunately, Captain Peterson did not provide an answer to the immediate question. They still don't know about the Colony 30 incident. They notice that the Ayug are using green Gem 2s. Even though there are differences between the Gem 2 and the Nemo, the Titans can't see that difference. After the briefing, they continue watching the news as the GRIPS team goes into action. Audrey comes up and says she knows the cause of the GRIPS incident. She heard news on the internet that it is because the Ayug stole a new mobile suit being developed by GRIPS. Eliard learns that even Grips has been developing Gundams. He wonders if Maxim Gunner knew about the Gundam. Maybe he was the reason they were able to steal it. That makes Eliard spiral and wonder if he could have stopped the theft of the Mark II if he simply stopped Maxim. He feels like a new one-year war is upon them. They make it to Earth's satellite orbit and receive a briefing from Murphy. The next operation will be using the Fiver. He says that this unit is the only support that they will need. They're confused by what this new unit is. They later realize that the TR-5 is so big that they have to assemble it outside of the Aswan. The ORX-005 Gaplant TR-5 Fiver is a heavy assault variant of the Gaplant TR-5. The base machine of the Fiber is a Gaplant with new sensors installed and the beam cannons removed. 2 defensive binders are attached to the backpack unit and the Gaplant's arms. This is designed for precision drop missions, and this unit can effectively drop down and do a bombing run all on its own. Each binder can also carry 1 escort mobile suit. This unit has an I-field generator. Weapons include a diffuse beam cannon, a long blade rifle, and a booster shield. Eliard's amazed by the sight of the unit. Conrad wakes up to Hendrik, Carl, and Audrey looking at the TV. They're watching the news where the Federation raided a local newspaper. The editor-in-chief tells the viewers that this is suppression of free speech. They are forcing them to recall today's newspapers. Joanna happened to get a copy before it was recalled. The article was about the 2 Federation soldiers that broke into Conrad's home. The 2 soldiers were named in the article as well. In order for the Feddies to raid the newspaper, they needed the judiciary courts to sign off on it. Not only did they do that, but they did this swiftly. Conrad is the type of guy that understands that the world sucks, but he puts his faith in the judicial system. If he doesn't have that, then this is nothing more than totalitarianism. He is losing faith in the system. But he wonders how determined this Michael Chang is. Once they begin publishing again, he needs to double down. The journalist seems to be on board if it sells. Remember, journalism comes second to selling papers. He and Joanna plan on going to the Justice Bureau. Carl wonders if they are crossing a dangerous bridge. Conrad says if they play dirty, maybe they have to play dirty. Things are different during this hearing. Everyone is uneasy. Conrad tells Eliard about the Federation soldiers that tried to shoot Hendrik and Audrey. Gordon continues asking similar questions regarding the Colony 30 incident and the incident with the Ashimar. The Commodore tells him to ask something new or end their line of questioning. The prosecution rests their case. The judge reminds both of them that he won't tolerate any more wasting of the court's time. The court is adjourned for the day. March UC-0087. The Aswan orbits Earth. The Hazel is equipped for use in Earth's atmosphere, and Fiver is good to go. A Salamis Kai-class ship will run support. This is the Izmir. Grips is giving them the Izmir, but they don't have any mobile suits. So Captain Otto Peterson is transferring them to the other ship. In this mission, they are to attack a secret Karaba base. The Fiver and all of the test mobile suits will be transferred with them. He tells them to prepare for the mission. Carl thinks that this is crazy that they are going to use test units in active battle. Having Karaba work with the AUG shows that this is a full-out war now. They approach the Izmir and begin transferring mobile suits. During the transfer, the alarms go off. 3 AUG mobile suits approach their 3 o'clock. They have to protect the Izmir and the Fiver. The 3 approaching units are Gem 2s. Quickly, Eliard and Murphy do some damage to the Gems and swiftly make the retreat. Murphy says what a way to be greeted to the Earth sphere. Back on the Zanzibar, we learn that Larson lost a leg during the previous battle with the Titans mobile suits. He doesn't think he has a purpose anymore. But Zola tells him as long as he lives, that's all that matters. Their existence is enough for Zeon. It seems Zola is leaning towards having their Zeon Remnant group join the AUG as they are at least fighting for the Space Noids. Larson was hoping that they would join Axis, but they can't wait forever, and they aren't sure which direction Axis will lean towards in this war. They are to rendezvous with the ship in 10 minutes. From this day forward, their Zanzibar will be a part of the AUG. When in battle, he could find a place of peace even during all the chaos. When Eliard was imprisoned, his mindset was that he was a dead man walking, but Conrad gave him hope. For the first time, Eliard even thought about what he would do if he were freed. His mindset switched, and he wanted to live. His first thoughts were that he would want to return to the battlefield. He wants to be in a mobile suit again. He now desires to win. UC-0088. Sure enough, the sight of the editor Michael Chang on TV spouting suppression of free speech worked, as it boosted sales of the newspaper. Ryu Kirishima, the writer of the article, needs to lay low. He was planning on bailing in the middle of the night, but as he was leaving, military vehicles pulled up to his place. We learn his real intentions for writing the article was that he wanted to date Conrad's assistant Joanna, and is merely trying to impress her. Dude's willing to risk it all for Fetty Puss. He knew he was being used by her, but he thought it was worth it. Oh boy, I think that might be the textbook definition of a simp. As they surround his house, he gets into his car and takes off. They aren't going to risk shooting Kirishima and having a scandal on their hands. He takes off down the street. UC 0087. Captain of the Izmir, Thomas Schrader, orders Murphy and the team to head down to Earth to take out a terrorist group that is backed by the AUG. Audrey mentions that the captain's name back in the day was Icicle because he is cold as ice and really sharp. He also never let a single subordinate die. He was commanding a Salamis-class ship during the 1-year war when he was still just in his 20s. The hangar preps the Hazel II, and the Rosette. The team meets Jonathan Cohen, the chief mechanic of the Izmir. He introduces Rachel Sand. The Fiver can enter the atmosphere and bring 2 mobile suits with it. They are going to attack the Hazel II and the Rosette. The mechanics are excited to work with something so beastly, so to speak. The pilots seem like they're in good hands. The Fiver launches and enters into Earth's atmosphere. They modified the Hazel II into what they are calling the Advanced Hazel. The RX-121-2A Gundam TR-1 Advanced Hazel is a remodeled version of Hazel II. It has a high-powered optical sensor just like the GEM Sniper 3. Leg enhancements and supplemental boosters have been added. The shield booster was tested on the Garibaldi, but after its pilot defected, the Hazel was used, giving it this new designation. The shield booster contains propellant tanks and a single thruster with an output of 22,000 kilograms. Weapons include 60mm Vulcans, a beam saber, a beam rifle, a 90mm machine gun, and a shield. The Fiver begins entering into the gravitational well of Earth. Zola looks up at the Ashimara that was captured by the AU. He recounts his battles with Murphy. Up until this moment, he was working with inferior mobile suits. If he could get his hands on a modern mobile suit, that could change everything for him. Zola talks to an AUG officer. They have an awkward first interaction. Great first impression, buddy. The Izmir became the new test ship, while the Aswan focused more on fighting the AU. One of the new pilots is Ensign Claude Leibel. On the Izmir, Audrey and the team are gossiping about this new pilot. She thinks that Murphy is still the best. Audrey will be piloting the Advanced Zeta, while Claude will be piloting the Hududu. The Hududu is similar to the G-Fighter of the 1-year war, reminding them that this isn't all about mobile suits. These two are engaged in a simulated battle. She notes that the additions to the unit allow it to snipe and support others, instead of being limited to short-range assaults. The two engage in battle. Audrey's tenacity isn't enough for the Hududu. She understands what Eliard meant when he said it's like riding a wild beast. She realized she overused the thrusters, and Claude was patient and waited it out. After the battle, Audrey notes that she used too much of her thrusters too early. She wants to update the operating system to rival the next generation of mobile suits. The red alert goes off on the ship, and Audrey is told to launch. She looks up and notes that the Hududu is attached to the Hazel Advance. They haven't tested this unit yet, so she is mad that she will have to do it live on the battlefield. The captain says that there are 3 Gem 2s that belong to the AUG. They won't receive any support from the Aswan. She launches in this new unit called Hazel Raw. The RX-121 plus the FX-29A Gundam TR-1 Hazel Raw is a combination of the Hududu and the Hazel Custom. This adds additional thrusters to the Hazel and binders that provide high mobility. When equipped with the Hududu parts, the Hazel Custom's beam rifle becomes a long blade rifle that can be used for long-range sniper attacks. Other weapons include a beam saber, Vulcans, a shield booster, and a multi-purpose launcher. Audrey's unit is superior in every way. She is agile enough to take out the 2 gems. The final one retreats. She whips out the long blade rifle and snipes the remaining unit. She does like that this mobile suit is quite useful. Kuraba's Kamchatka base is built on an abandoned mining site. The Ashimar that was stolen is supposed to make its way to the base soon. The alarms go off. Zola is informed of base jabbers coming in. He is a Xeon remnant of the former Space Forces. Subflight systems for use in Earth's atmosphere are still a new concept to him. The Ashimar is going to be assigned to Zola's team, but since it hasn't arrived, he wants to use a mobile suit. There's only a gym available for use. Based on his bombastic reaction, he probably never piloted a Fetty mobile suit before. He takes off and meets with the base defense team of Nemos. They are fighting Hyzax and Marasais. It throws Zola off as both of those designs look inherently like Zaku's. He also being in a gym is disorienting him. He shoots a base jabber. One friendly Nemo explodes, but it causes another base jabber to be taken down. The Marasai and Hyzax drop down on the ground. Like many Xeon soldiers, Seeing the Federation take the Zaku design and use it for their own means is a great insult to Zola. That is when ballistic missiles come down on the base. Something approaches from the sky. 1 month ago, the AUG launched an assault on Jaburo and the Titans vacated the base. Most of the operations were transferred to Kilimanjaro, but there were various bases throughout North America that assumed control of some operations. The Titans test team began their testing of the fiber, while Eliard boards the Hazel Custom and Carl the Rosette. This was taking place at Nevada Base. They're heading to Kamchatka Base, strapped to ballistic rockets. They're shooting up into the stratosphere and dropping down to the Russian Karaba base. They launch. Eliard is pinned back from all the G's, no different from your astronauts of yesteryear. He thinks humans shouldn't be attached to missiles. They go up and drop down to enemy airspace. Hazel and Rosette detach from the fiber. The fiber dives and transforms into mobile suit form, and enemies withdraw from the side of the mobile suit. UC-0088. The Fedis pursue Kurishima as he drives through a residential area. He is trying to get to the freeway. His left side mirror is shot off. Well, it looks like they are shooting to kill, he thinks. Once on the highway, the Fedis can't be so reckless in public. As he speeds on the highway, the Fedi van stops following. A bright light immediately blares through the rear view mirror. It is a Fedi chopper. They really aren't playing around. It gets low and pursues. Too low for a chopper. Suddenly, the engine goes out on the helicopter and the rotors nip Kurishima's car. This causes him to spin off the freeway into an embankment with a forest in the background. The reporter pushes himself out of the car wreckage and notices that the helicopter crashed. He comes back to reality and shovels into the forest. He can't stand up, so he crawls on all fours. Audrey, Carl, Hendrik, Joanna, and Comrade talk over dinner. They're certain he is good on most of the charges, but the charges regarding the colony still remain up in the air. He needs to know everything. Carl says it was a hellish battle between the AUG, Axis, and the Titans. Everyone was split up. On this chaotic battlefield, it was hard to spot anyone, let alone comrades. Eliard went off on his own and told Carl he has a mission of his own. Conrad says if that is the case, he can't testify on the 2 remaining charges. After the fall of the Izmir, the Aswan took in all Izmir units. Before he even made it to the Aswan, Eliard got a new mobile suit. Murphy was injured and called over Eliard before he sortied. During this time, the mobile suit was destroyed and no one can confirm he didn't sabotage it. Carl says there is one man who would know this, his enemy, Gabriel Zola, who was there till the very end. UC-0087, Kamchatka. Gabriel Zola watches on as the Titans test team descend on Kamchatka base. He is in the Gym 2. The Fiver transforms into mobile suit form. He notices the Mara sign the Titan's colors, referring to Carl's Rosette. He shoots at Rosette, but his beam rifle is out of ammo. As Rosette aims at Zola, a missile barrage comes down. It is Gym 2's and Nemo's from Karaba. They tell Zola to pull back. Rather, he decides to pick up rubble and chuck it at the enemy. A familiar ex-Fedi comes on the comms to tell him that his Asimar is ready. Carl notices the Asimar coming in. It crosses path with the Fiver and transforms into mobile suit form. Eliard is taking care of Nemo's on the ground. He uses his thrusters and does himself a good old Amado ray jump and fires at the Ashimar. Zola says, nice piloting on the comms. Murphy recognizes that it is Zola. He wonders why he is fighting with the AUG now. He thinks Murphy is piloting the Gundam, but the Hazel pops up and says, oh hey, that's me. Karaba's forces were starting to run out of ammo, and Zola notices this. He transforms into flight form and makes his retreat. Back on the Izmir, the ship gets a red alert. Audrey is on standby in the Hazel Raw. The mechanics are adding extra thrusters and binders in a configuration known as Hazel Raw's second form. The RX 121-1 plus FFX29A Gundam TR1 Hazel Raw second form is the Hazel Custom with 2 Hurdudu G-parts attached. This gives the unit 4 binders. The Hurdudu's nose sensor unit can also be used as a connector for shield boosters. This can also equip the gap lamp booster and create insane levels of thrust. Because of this, the unit focuses on long-range hit-and-run tactics. Weapons include 2 beam sabers, Vulcans, a shield booster, a beam rifle, and a long blade rifle. It also has multiple multi-purpose launchers. Thrusters at the waist enhance the acceleration while negating the torque. This was based off of Audrey's own suggestion. The captain tells her that an AUG Zanzibar deployed 3 Nemos. Audrey launches. She doesn't need a catapult to launch. She uses her own thrusters and takes off. She activates sniping mode and points her dual long blade rifles. It hits one of the Nemos. There is a lot of power behind this gun. The 2 remaining Nemos spread out. Executive Officer Enrique Hammond is watching on the bridge of the Izmir along with Captain Schroeder. These 2 have a past and were former mobile suit pilots. Schroeder is the kind of man that will make himself the villain if it means his crew survives. Hammond says that Audrey's battle style is familiar. He mentions she is like the Gendrobian pilot from Operation Stardust. Schroeder reminds Hammond that the Dendrobium doesn't officially exist. Remember, if you ask Federation officials about the events of Stardust Memory, they will deny it. They'll just go, nope, don't know what you're talking about. Audrey successfully takes down the remaining 2 units. UC-0088. Conrad is confused that Zola was originally a Zeon remnant before joining the AU. They were barely scraping by with their mobile suits on the verge of falling apart. Carl says that since UC-0085, this Gabriel Zola seemed to be obsessed, specifically over the Gundam and Compay Island, or Solomon as they call it. Many Zeon soldiers from the One-Year War heard stories of the Gundam, so it makes sense. But the irony being here that the Gundam became a symbol of the AU during this time. Conrad's friend Erhardt, who knows all the records, never mentioned this Zola character. Many AU members who were former Federation members ended up rejoining the military. But those who were AUG with a Zeon background definitely didn't. After all, Char took the same route as well. There are rumors that he rejoined Axis and is rebuilding a new Zeon. The first thing they need to do is find Gabriel Zola. They don't really have time to drag this trial out any longer. Joanna doesn't think they will have time to find him. She gets a phone call informing her of Kurishima. Kurishima told Joanna that he was shot by Fetties while fleeing from his home. They turn on the TV. The news mentions it in a 3-second segment and moves on. They're barely covering this accident. Joanna reminds Conrad that Axis is becoming a bigger problem for the Fetties. Some say that they are now going by Neo Zeon. If they are planning on making themselves known to the world, that means Zola might flee to Axis. That will make things more difficult for them. It was past midnight, but everyone is wide awake. He gets to work thinking of a plan. UC-0087. The Titans test team is prepping a shuttle back into space. There is a flaw. Their takeover of the space is merely temporary. Murphy jokes that it would be easier to kamikaze during this mission. He can actually enter into space on his own. He is going to protect the shuttle as it is vulnerable. Just as Murphy predicted, the red alert goes off, and Ashimar and 3 Nemos approach their location. Eliard wants to join Murphy, but he tells his subordinate to wait for him on the Izmir. This base has a rail system, which is a mini-mass driver system. Zola is amazed by the Fiver, but his unit is built for dogfights, and the Fiver seems like it's hard to turn around real fast. They're here to reclaim the base. That is when the shuttle doors open. Zola transforms into mobile suit form. Eliard and Carl watch the battle from within the shuttle. The Fiver is going to struggle with its small turning radius. Eliard insists he go out, but Carl says they are a test team, and they must get their test data back to the ship. The Asimar flanks the Fiver. The Fiver sheds its giant armor, revealing the Gaplant Hrairu underneath. Murphy's speed increased to unimaginable levels. It's like Piccolo taking off his weighted armor. Murphy takes out the Nemos with ease and begins fighting Zola. That is when the shuttle launches into space. Zola transforms into flight mode and retreats. UC-0088. Kurishima is fleeing into the forest. He is going to lay low until the fires die down. He thinks he should move to another town and lay low. He reflects about how the media portrays the Federation and the Titans as 2 sides of the same coin. The AU were painted as freedom fighters fighting for space rights, but even their motives were backed by corporations. He didn't write the article just to run and hide. He calls Joanna and informs her of the situation. He reveals that this forest, which is in Nevada by the way, is entirely artificial. Well, yeah, it's in Nevada. He heads to town and gets some water at a fast food joint. He then eats a burger and dials Michael Chang. Kurishima tells him of the situation and he wants to publish his piece. The paper is currently selling like crazy. New Carson City is a military town, so it shows that the readers are fed up with the decision of the current leadership. Chang wants a follow-up piece. Kurishima will have it in his inbox ASAP. He heads to a local church that takes in homeless and asks for shelter. He can't use his credit cards at a hotel, giving away his location. In his bunk, he whips out his phone and writes his follow-up article. He is no longer writing for Joanna. This is for himself. It took him about 2 hours to complete. After a few drafts, he sends it off to the editor. He eventually drifts off to sleep. UC-0087. A new squad came to the Izmir and the mobile suit deck started to get cramped. Ever since Kamchatka, the test team has been integrated into assault forces. Murphy is now using Hrairu, Eliard the Hazel Custom, and Carl the Advanced Hazel. Audrey runs support where needed. Commander Enrique Hammond briefs them on the next operation. They are to attack Rosa Gigantea. This is a Levian Rose-class ship that is currently orbiting Earth and intersects in between Compay Island and the Gates of Zidane. Murphy's squad will lead the attack. They are to capture Rosa Gigantea, but if that can't happen, they are to destroy it. Murphy and Eliard launch. Conrad's Advanced Hazel is equipped with a sniper loadout. Audrey launches in the Hurdudu. Following them is the second squad, consisting of a Marasai and 2 Hyzax. 2 Nemos and 1 Rick Diaz launch from Rosa Gigantea. Carl takes aim with his sniper rifle, but Murphy tells him to stand down. Behind the Levian Rose-class ship is the Zanzibar. A black Rick Diaz and 2 Nemos come from the ship carrying large beam cannons. He changes his targets and fires. They return fire with beam cannons. In a rare moment in Gundam history, they actually have a practical long-range battle. Inside the Rick Diaz is Zola. The way this mobile suit feels, he is certain this was made with Zeon blood. Of course, it was, as Char and Sumeri, along with Granada Anaheim Electronics, are responsible for this machine. He is to protect Rosa Gigantea. He stays back to allow the Nemos to use their beam cannons, but they need to be mobile. He decides to push in. So much for practicality. Murphy engages with Zola. Carl pushes in towards Rosa Gigantea, where Audrey covers him. Eliard can't get the ship in his scopes, and there's too much beam crossfire. A white light consumes Eliard's monitors. He hears Audrey scream Carl's name. Carl's advanced Hazel was hit. Oh no! Except we know the future, so there's no tension. August, UC 0087. Eliard calls out to Carl. It was a Nemo that attacked Carl and his advanced Hazel. Eliard spots the Nemo and fires at it until it explodes. A distress signal comes from Carl's Hazel. He is immobile, but alive. Murphy goes to save him while the others cover him. Audrey falls back while Murphy retrieves Carl's mobile suit. Eliard is the one on the battlefield, outside of Amarasai from the second team. It doesn't seem like capturing Rosa Gigantea is a possibility. They will have to destroy it. That is when a Rick Diaz comes in. It is Zola. Eliard attacks, but the Rick Diaz dodges with ease. Zola asks if he is fighting Murphy or Eliard. He hesitates. This conversation may allow him to buy some time for the secondary team. He says to Eliard so long as he pilots the Gundam, people like him will always exist. Eliard's like, cool bro, and continues fighting. Zola has his back to the sun, a tactic used to blind your enemy. Eliard's Hazel Custom is hit. One thruster on the left leg is damaged. Another beam hits his right arm. He doesn't care. He just needs one critical hit. Zola shoots his chest, opening him up to an opportunity to strike. He attacks and strikes down the Rick Diaz. At the same time, the engine block on Rosa Gigantea went up in flames. Eliard makes his retreat and asks for a status report on Carl. He is fine and kicking. They didn't take down Rosa Gigantea, but it will be out of commission for some time. July, UC 0088. Kirishima woke up feeling uneasy. His gut feeling was right, as there were Federation mobile suits outside. They seemed to be looking for him. He can't escape through the window now. Luckily, the priest was able to stop them from searching inside. The Fedi soldiers take their leave. One homeless man asks him why the Fedis are after him. He tells them about the article, and he seems to be familiar as he has read it. He makes his leave as he doesn't want to cause any trouble to the priest. The homeless man follows him and says he has a tip for him. He says that the guy in the article is a Gundam pilot. The Federation, of course, denies any Gundams made from the Titans. The man says he knows someone involved, the pilot. He tells him that he was a former Zeon soldier turned AUG soldier. He is talking about Gabriel Zola. This makes things interesting for Kirishima. He was a crew member on Zola's Zanzibar after the Grips conflict. Only a few reintegrated, while others like him were discarded. The dude wants money for more information. Kirishima plans on verifying his facts first. The name of the homeless man is Joey. He said he has nowhere to go, so he will be here if he needs to find him. He is concerned that someone may be trying to monetize drama over a former superior officer rather than provide genuine intel. He takes off hiding in alleys. He needs to get out of New Carson City. He decides to call Joanna. November, UC 0087. Zola is just informed that the Titans have joined forces with the Axis. It doesn't mention that he ejected in an escape pod. He's just here after exploding. Why would they be working with the Earth-centric Titans, he wonders. He says he knows Haman, which is weird because she was a kid during the one-year war, and Zola's team has been destitute and hiding before becoming AUG members. He must be basing this off of vague rumors, because he don't know her. Ignoring this, he recognizes that this alliance is temporary. He does mention that his Rick Diaz won't be ready in time. It went up in flames. How much of it was left to fix? He will have to use a Nemo for now. He'll use it, but he doesn't like Federation mobile suits. They will make contact with the enemy in 3 days. Executive Officer Enrique Hammond is briefing the team on the Zanzibar. Murphy is currently on the Aswan, in a defense strategy meeting in regards to a potential AUG attack on Kompe Island. Carl went to get a package that will be transferred to their ship. During their battle with Rosa Gigantea, Carl was injured. He went to Earth to get treatment and is delivering a package back to the ship while down there. They too are informed of the Titans Axis alliance. Hammond reminds them that Captain Schroeder hasn't lost a man, so they can't die and ruin that streak. Eliard is worried about the Alliance. Audrey says that this is just a strategy to help them focus on fighting the AU. Audrey pilots the Hazel Ra while Eliard is in the Gap Plant Huairo, gathering data on new equipment. They are to pick up the package codenamed TR6. An urgent communication comes down from the Izmir. 3 Nemos approach, one with a subflight system. Eliard moves in while Audrey covers the rear and the shuttle coming back. Meanwhile, Zola is on the flying armor, which Camille used with the Mark II to ride those sweet waves during an attack on Jaburo. The Hazel Ra fires the long blade rifle and damages the flying armor. This is above their heads, and he calls for a retreat for now. That was fast. Zola learns that the Titans are trying to completely split from the Earth Federation forces and wonders why. A moderate faction in the Federation is going to provide intel on the Titans' weapons. Zola knows he is referring to the Gundams. The Fedi conservatives will refuse to acknowledge that the Titans even have Gundams. He also mentions a faction breaking off from the Titans. I wonder if this is a reference to the new Decides. Zola volunteered to be the team to reclaim Compay Island as the Federation is trying to take it back, and the fortress from the Titans. The AUG are helping in this situation. To Zola, reclaiming Solomon has always been the dream. They are winning this war, but it feels empty to him. Eliard is on standby in the Hazel Custom. Murphy has returned and is on standby in the Gap Plant Huairo. They received intel on the AUG's attack on Compay Island. Carl wants to take off, but they're equipping the unit with the Primrose. It'll be hard without Carl on the battlefield. Executive Officer Hammond tells them that 6 Nemos are attacking. The Aswans, Hyzaks, are the first to the scene. He wants Audrey to launch in the Herdudu. The Hyzaks go to resupply when the AUG's second waves begin their attacks, which include 3 Nemos and 3 Rick Diaz's. He heads out and engages with the wave of enemies. Eliard gets into a dogfight with a Nemo. The Herdudu fires from afar. The squad of Hyzaks are replaced with 1 Gem Sniper 3 and 2 Gem 2 high mobility types. Eliard thinks to himself, this sniper is no Carl. On the Zanzibar, Zola's new Rick Diaz refit is ready. He launches in the Rick Diaz Stutzer. The MSA 099 Rick Diaz Stutzer is an enhanced Rick Diaz and is designed to be a transformable mobile suit. However, it doesn't transform for some reason. This was created by Anaheim Electronics like the original. 2 binder units are added to the backpack. It has a winch unit and can be fitted with a beam rifle or a large wire-guided claw that opens to reveal a beam cannon. The suit is designed for large-scale fleet and fortress battles. Zola was inspired by the Titans test team and designed his own version of a shield booster called the Long Shield Booster. The pilot also tags Xeon Alive on the mobile suit. Weapons include a winch unit, a 2-barrel 55mm Vulcan phalanx, a beam saber, a missile launcher, missile pods, a beam pistol, and the 300mm clay bazooka. He doesn't wait for the second wave to return before he takes off. He engages with Eliard in the Gundam. Zola unleashes a missile barrage and takes out his beam rifle. Eliard is certain that Zola is the pilot of the mobile suit. He hears Carl's voice on the radio. He comes onto the battlefield in the Primrose. The emergency escape pod Primrose was designed after the loss of Hazel 1, as this is designed to attach to a Hazel unit. Its design resembles a mobile suit torso. This is very similar to the core lock system of the 1 Year War. However, when this version ejects, the head and the limbs all self-destruct, ensuring no data can be extracted by the enemy. It all leaves with the Primrose. This has various armament loadouts, which will be broke down with the Hazel Ausla. Weapons include the binder, which allows additional attachment, the open barrel cannon prototype, and a missile pod. He conveniently is carrying a rifle for Eliard to use. He is able to rejoin the battle swiftly. Zola and the third wave didn't last long, and they retreat. Back on the ship, the team's eyes are locked onto the TV. The AUG just took over Dakar. Shar is with the AUG and is giving a speech denouncing the Titans. They learn of an uprising happening at Compay Island. A shift has occurred. The Federation now views them as an eyesore, and much of the war efforts are now handled by Luna 2 and Grips. As Eliard and Carl head to the mobile suit deck, they find 2 men yelling at each other. One thinks that Shar's words hold true, while the other thinks he is just being selfish. There is a divide amongst the people, one that Eliard is just now realizing. Carl tells them that they need to follow orders and work towards keeping the crew alive. Carl's new Hazel Ausla is good to go. The RX-121 2P Gundam TR-1 Hazel Ausla is the advanced Hazel with the Primrose emergency escape pod. This is designed to help save the life of the pilot, but more importantly, saving all the test data. I guess this was before the escape ball. Because of the Primrose, the Hazel can equip various weapons such as subarms or extra sensors. This loadout still utilizes the long blade rifle rifle with a barrel extension. This has different loadouts. The first armament type removes the sub-arm and adds a winch cannon and shield booster. The second armament type uses the multi-pods and beam rifle similar to the Mark II. Third is the tri-booster unit with the sub-arm and winch. The fourth mounts 2 Herdudu units to the mobile suit. There is also a full armor type. Other weapons include a beam saber, Vulcan guns, a shield, a winch cannon attached to the Primrose, and 12 micro-missile pods. Carl was the one who named this unit. Eliard's new Gaplant Unit 2 is running late. He wonders where Audrey is. Murphy says that she is on an important mission to delete all crucial test data on the TR series at Compay Island. They might have to abandon the fortress. The rebellion has been suppressed, but the fortress is still being attacked from the outside. Murphy says that is where they come in. They need to not let anyone get close to Compay Island to let Audrey complete her mission. Zola has a Zanzibar and Salamis Kai-class ship. They are launching mobile suits at Compay Island. He spots the Gundam and instantly attacks him. He happens to attack Carl, who is able to swiftly dodge. The enemy closed the gap, preventing Carl from using his shoulder cannon. He feels like he is being cornered and wonders if he is playing with him. That is when Eliard and the Huayru comes in and distracts Zola so Carl can use his beam cannons on the ship. Carl fires, getting a direct hit on the Zanzibar. It doesn't destroy it, but there is significant damage to the ship. The Ayug retreats. The Titans were able to buy some time for Audrey. UC-0087. The Izmir crew hears an announcement from Captain Schroeder. The Titans at Compay Island are ordered to head to the Gate of Zidane. The Aswan will be joining them. Eliard wonders if that means they are losing Compay Island to the AU. That is when Audrey returns from her mission. This makes Eliard feel a sense of safety. July UC-0088. Eliard's trial was taking longer than expected, and the Commodore isn't going to allow it to go on for too much longer. They are in the middle of a power struggle between EFF and the Titans, and Eliard's life is on the line. No one has slept, and everyone is looking for Gabriel Zola, but they haven't been able to find him. Maybe he already went to Axis. Joanna and Comrade had to go into the office. Joanna comes in telling him that Kurishima called her, and he is being pursued by the military. He thinks they're trying to kill him. He is still in New Carson. Conrad decides to plan a meetup. He will host him in his house like the others. But since he is being pursued, they will have to be precise with getting him through his gated community. One thing is for certain, the article Kurishima wrote and Michael Chan published is actually doing something. Conrad returns home to find Hendrik, Carl, and Audrey watching the news. Michael Chan has been killed. The news states it was an accident, but Hendrik yells at the TV claiming the Fetties got him. To Conrad, this is outright tyranny, and is embarrassed for the system he is a part of. They still have no leads on Zola. He informs the others that Kurishima will be joining them. 30 minutes later, she arrives with the journalist. Conrad apologizes for Michael Chan. He was a true journalist who took risks. They must win this trial to avenge his death. He needs to shower, eat, and get some rest. After taking a shower and eating, Kurishima finally got some energy back in him. They tell him that they are looking for a Zeon turned Ayug soldier. Hendrik says that this Zola doesn't seem to be in space. Kurishima says that he heard that name from a homeless person at the church yesterday. Conrad just got himself a new lead. Kurishima tells him that his name is Joey. Conrad wants to go talk to him right now. Kurishima wants to join, but Conrad won't let him leave considering what happened last time. Joanna and Conrad will go and find him while Kurishima rests. He tells the guard at his gated community that they are going to the cinema to catch a late-night show. Joanna is concerned of the rumors this might spread between the two. They head to the church to speak with the priest. He is initially hesitant and thinks they are soldiers, but he explains that he is a lawyer and simply looking for Joey to ask him questions. They wait while the priest grabs Joey. He comes over and Conrad asks him about Gabriel Zola, but he isn't giving out intel for free. Conrad pulls out money, but doesn't give it to him until he can ensure this intel is trustworthy. He was on the Zanzibar with Gabriel Zola. Conrad wonders if he is alive. According to Joey, he is. Last he heard was a month ago. He was working as a mobile worker in Las Vegas. This is why he couldn't be found in space. A month is a long time and he might have bailed for Axis by now. They want to go searching for him, but Joey says that he has his phone number. He offers money to Joey, but he decides not to take it. He says he isn't going to tarnish his pride as a Zeon soldier. He tells him to go save his soldier. Joey says that Zola wanted to return to space. They better hurry. They make their leave back to the house. Joanna begins dialing Zola's number, but gets nothing. He He is certain that the Commodore is going to want to wrap up this trial by tomorrow and has to find a way to delay as much as possible. Once again, no one wants to go to sleep, and they begin researching construction yards in Vegas. January, UC 0088. In the Zanzibar, Zola looks out at the Gate of Zidane. Formerly a Bawaku, it is unique to see Axis next to it. By this time, alliances between the Titans and Axis have broken down, and now Haman is trying to ram Axis into the Gate of Zidane. Once the Titans begin fleeing, that is when Zola's team will begin attacking. He calls it Operation Whack-A-Mole. One thing they know is that, in the long run, they don't belong with Axis nor the AU. But for now, they will have to focus on surviving this war. His underling, Larson, says this all started when the Grips Gundam was stolen, referring to the Mark II. The Izmir is docked in the Gate of Zidane. Eliard is waiting on standby. The Aswan is capable of operating solo, but the Izmir is always with them. Executive Officer Hammond tells the Mobile Suit team to launch once they leave the port of the Gate of Zidane. Murphy launches in the Gaplant Huayru. Eliard launches in the Gaplant Huayru Unit 2. Carl launches in the Hazel Ausla. And finally, Audrey in the Herdudu. Out of context, that sentence sounds stupid. The three boys spread out while Audrey holds the rear. The AU Zanzibar makes its appearance. They are aware by this point that Zola always targets the Gundam, so they are expecting him to go after Carl. However, unlike Unit 1, Eliard's Huayru has a Gundam head, so he might be a target as well. Having two Huayrus on the battlefield allows them to test their opponent's reaction to the Gundam heads, a staple of their training at this point. The Richtia Stutzer and two Nemos launch from the AU ship. The test team disperses as the enemy fires. Murphy instantly shoots down one Nemo. Eliard destroys the shield of the other Nemo. It rushes in. Carl and Murphy go after the Richtias, while Eliard and Audrey attack the Nemo. The two enemy mobile suits eventually retreat. The Izmir pushes in and preps the megaparticle cannon. Murphy and the gang return to the ship. On the Aswan, a section of the ship is blocked off, and Hendrik and Pete can access it. They learn that in the area contains the new TR-6. February, UC 0088. Captain Schroeder gave a shipwide announcement. He informs the crew of Bascom's death in battle. This, of course, comes after Jamatov Hyman's death as well. The AU has stolen the colony laser from Axis. Their mission is to steal the laser back. After the shipwide message, he tells the bridge crew that if they lose it here, the Titans will collapse. He wonders who is going to be the pilot of the TR-6. It seems Murphy recommended Eliard instead of himself to be the pilot. They wonder if he is planning on passing the torch. Their goal is to ensure that the TR-6 on board the Aswan is safe, even if it means the Izmir going down to protect it. There is a briefing. Like always, the captain tells them not to die. Zola and his team are going to take down the Izmir and the Aswan, while Shar and the Argama go after the colony laser. Rest in peace, Emma. He heads to the mobile suit deck. This was Eliard's first fleet battle. They are in the same loadout as last battle. This three-way battle is making things hard on the battlefield. Eliard doesn't know much about Paptimus Sirocco, who is now in charge of the Titans. The Zanzibar approaches, and so too does the Richtias and two Nemos. Zola, of course, goes after the Hazel Ausla. Eliard tries to get behind the Nemos. He is suddenly hit by the Richtias, who is now protecting his comrades. He loses his camera feeds, and his thrusters are shot. He is dead in the water. The Izmir rocks as a mobile suit most likely hit the outer hull. Captain Schroeder orders everyone to evacuate the ship. If a beam hits the engines, they are all done. Executive Officer Hammond thinks this is too hasty, and they still could fight. Even the captain's face looks concerned. He says he will evacuate once everyone gets off the ship. Another Nemo crashes into the ship, rocking the boat. Hammond wants to stay with the captain, but he says to leave. He gets on the last escape pod. After he ejects the Izmir, and the captain goes down. On the Aswan, Captain Otto Peterson is informed of the Izmir. They begin to pick up the Izmir pods and cargo. He gets word from HQ to deploy TR-6. The captain wonders why they are telling him to deploy a new unit this deep into the mission that is currently going not well for them. For Peterson, the Titans are finished. Sending out a state-of-the-art Gundam would just cause more death without changing the outcome. Even if they win this battle, they have no real leadership. Sirocco is doing his own thing and not concerned with the state of the Titans. He also might be currently getting penetrated as we speak. However, the captain won't disobey an order. He tells the mechanics to prep the Gundam. He is informed of two Gaplants requesting to land. It is Murphy and Eliard. Murphy is badly injured and is wheeled out by the medics. But as he leaves, he gives Eliard a thumbs up. I believe this is where the story originally started. Eliard takes a moment to himself as he almost experienced death. That is when Hendrix comes over and tells him perfect timing. He is the new pilot. He looks up to see the Wandwer EX. We will break this final form mobile suit down next time. Murphy comes to the mobile suit deck even though he is badly injured. He says that he needs to tell Eliard something important. He must not sortie in the TR-6. This battle is over. If he launches, it will just drag the fight out longer. This is pointless. Eliard is confused, however, and he knows that he can't disobey an order. However, much of the Titan's high command has left them in the dark, as Bask and Jamatov are dead. As the two talk, someone behind them suggests that they not have these conversations out in the open. It is Captain Otto Peterson. He tells the two to come to his cabin. The captain tells Murphy that he isn't a part of high command and he doesn't make launch decisions. However, after launching, he isn't joining the front lines, but rather destroying the TR-6. Captain Peterson is of the same mind as Murphy, but Murphy must be reminded of the picking order. As Eliard runs back to the hangar, he hears Peterson call out for a medic from Murphy. Hendrik tells him that there is no time to add mobile armored components, so he has to launch in mobile suit form. He wonders if destroying the Gundam is the key to winning this war. Eliard launches in the Wound Ward. The RX-124 Gundam TR-6 Wound Ward is the final TR series mobile suit created for the Titans test team. This is the culmination of the TR project and designed to unify the best parts of the TR project. The model integration plan pushed development to be consolidated. This isn't necessarily one singular mobile suit, but a series of modular configurations. At the core of this is the emergency escape pod Primrose 2. The Primrose 2 has autonomous navigation capabilities. Various parts connect to this core using the Bunny's system. I get it. Because of its design, there are an infinite number of configurations, as we will see in Reboot. This culminates in the ultimate configuration known as Inlay. This unit has a subarm, a composite shield booster, and an eye-field generator. Weapons include Vulcan guns, a long beam rifle, and a claw attached to the shield booster. Gabriel Zola is on the front lines and is over this battle. To him, he thinks that Axis got caught up in a power struggle between the Federation. The colony laser means nothing to him. All he cares about is the Gundam. His monitor picks up a new mobile suit. He finds the TR-6. Zola leaves the front lines and begins attacking Eliard. Carl finally landed on the Aswan in the Hazel Ausla. He tells Hendrik to refuel as he wants to get back out there. He was separated from Audrey and doesn't know where Murphy or Eliard is. Hendrik tells him that Eliard took off in the TR-6. He detoured from the battlefield to the debris field. A Rick Diaz chased after him. Carl knows it is Zola. He wants Hendrik to hurry so he could help Eliard. Carl launches and instantly heads towards Eliard, but he checks behind him and sees the Aswan in flames. He thinks about turning around to help, but it is too late. The Aswan goes down. Zola chases Eliard through the debris field. He is possessed with the Gundam. The captain and Murphy were right. As long as the Gundam exists, people like Zola will always be driven to fight. It must be destroyed. He finds a good spot when he is attacked. It isn't Zola, however. It is 6 Nemos from a Salamis Kai-class ship. Without hesitating, the Wanderwort takes out 3 Nemos and does damage to the Salamis Kai. The 3 remaining Nemos retreat. Gabriel Zola, still chasing Eliard, is amazed by the speed of the Gundam that he just witnessed. He fires at Eliard. All Eliard has to do is let him win to complete his mission. He stops in his tracks and the two just sit there in a standoff. Zola finally fires at the Gundam. It takes out the left leg, but Eliard doesn't move. An opponent that doesn't fight back is no fun for Zola. He scans the comms and tries to make contact with him. Eliard didn't touch the controls when he was shot. Zola contacts him. He asks what game he is playing. He tells Zola that his mission is to destroy the unit. He says if he wants the Gundam destroyed, then why doesn't he fight him? Eliard doesn't want to fight him for the reasons it needs to be destroyed. People like him will always lean towards battle when the Gundam is around. Zola fires again and damages the arm. He isn't going to fight back. He locks onto the Gundam, but doesn't fire. Instead, Zola opens his cockpit. Eliard wants him to destroy the Gundam, but his goal is to defeat the Gundam, not merely destroy it with him in it. If his mission is to ensure the destruction of the Gundam, he has to survive to ensure its destruction. He doesn't understand what Zola's true intent is. Zola tells him to come to his cockpit and they can both destroy the Gundam together. The situation is so weird that Eliard just laughs. He heads over to the Rick Diaz. The two hold the controls and fire at the Wanderwort, destroying the Gundam. That's hot. On the comms comes Carl's voice saying that he killed Eliard. Eliard tells him that he is alive and in the Rick Diaz. Zola opens the hatch and tells Eliard to go with his comrade. He says to live on. They thank one another and Zola makes his leave. Eliard tells Carl about a secret mission from Captain Otto Peterson. Suddenly, a light flashes through space. The colony laser goes off. A voice comes on the comms. It is Bright telling all remaining Titans to surrender. They aren't going to survive out in space and will have to surrender as well. Carl also decides to blow up his Gundam. He has the Primrose, so they could still make their escape. It's better than it falling into the hands of the AU. February, Universal Century 0088. The battle over the colony laser has come to an end. Of course, we know the damage done to both the AUG and the Titans would give Haman the opportunity to start the first Neo-Zeon War. July, UC 0088. Conrad and Gordon step up to Commodore Milkoff's bench. Gordon says that the defense is stalling with no clear motive and wants swift proceedings. Conrad says that he is trying to find a new witness, but it will take some time. Because of the time it will take, the judge denies his request. He wonders if the Commodore is colluding with Gordon. After all, once that Mark II was stolen by that young lady, the Gundam became the face of the AU, and they might want to distance themselves from all things Gundam. It is clear the military-industrial complex and the EFF want to distance themselves. But the question is it the Federation pulling the strings, or is it AE and the military-industrial complex? He has to buy time. Conrad mentions that this is pertinent evidence, but the Commodore says if he can't be summoned soon, then he needs to make his closing arguments. He asks for a short recess before making his final arguments. The judge grants them 1 hour. The team is desperately trying to get a hold of Zola, but he can't be found. Being a former Zeon and AUG soldier makes it harder. Carl asks Kirishima if he still has the article he was going to publish before Michael Chan died. He has it on his phone. He should start sending the article all over the dark web. Maybe it might even get the attention of Zola. At Conrad's office, Joanna was being overwhelmed with calls when she gets a call from someone who remains anonymous that wants to speak to the legal team handling Eliard's defense. She asks if he is Gabriel Zola. He says he will call back later and hangs up. Court is back in session. Gordon gives his final arguments. Without Gordon's testimony, Eliard is most likely to be found guilty. It was the defense's turn to speak. Before starting the argument, he moves to appeal to have the trial open to the public. Everyone in the courtroom gives him a glare. Conrad has the necessary documents for this appeal ready to go. Eliard asks if this is possible. He says it is the only move he can make to delay the verdict from being made. This appeal allows for the court to be adjourned for the day. He tells Eliard to trust him as he heads back to his cell. Conrad has no time to waste. Joanna informs Conrad of the call she received earlier. He tells her to forward all calls to his cell phone. Conrad heads home early to find everyone happy. They found Gabriel Zola and he happens to be in New Carson City. It happened to be the pastor from earlier that helped him get wind of his location. Conrad felt the urge to thank God in that moment. He heads to the shelter to meet up with Zola. As he makes his leave, Joanna calls him. The mysterious man called again, and he forwards his call to his cell. He asks if he is defending Eliard. Conrad wonders who he is. He is in shock upon hearing their name. We cut directly to the next day where the trial picks up once again. Commodore Milkoff denies his request for a public trial. Eliard believes that the death penalty now awaits him. Before his closing arguments, Conrad would like to call a new witness. He calls to the stand Gabriel Zola. Zola tells Conrad that he was an AUG soldier at the Battle of the Colony Laser. His mission was to take down the Titan's Gundam. He says Eliard was the pilot of said Gundam. Zola states that he was under orders to destroy it. Gordon objects, but surprisingly it is overruled by the Commodore. He then mentions that the Gundam would sow doubts on the battlefield and cause more bodies to pile up during the operation. Gordon objects again, this time sustained. He has to focus his line of questioning to the facts and not speculation. If Eliard launched in the Gundam, would this cause more chaos on the battlefield? He says absolutely, as he witnessed the Gundam take out 3 Nemos and a Salamis Kai in a second. Conrad has no further questions. Eliard is amazed that his questioning ended so short. Gordon begins cross-examination. He asks about communication with Eliard. Gordon says Minovsky particle disruption wasn't bad in the shoal zone, so they can communicate fine. He asks if he is certain that he fought a Gundam. Zola spent most of his life hunting the Gundam. He is absolutely certain. Gordon ends his line of questioning. However, Conrad has one more witness. He calls to the stand Wes Murphy, leader of the Titans test team. Conrad asks if he was fighting on the same battlefield. Murphy says yes, however, he wasn't by his side. He explains how he told Eliard to destroy the Gundam before Captain Otto Peterson came to officially give him the same order. Murphy happens to have a document of those signed orders. He gives it up for evidence. Gordon doesn't cross-examine Murphy. After a brief recess, they reconvene to hear the verdict. The Commodore gets right into it. On the first charge of involvement in the Colony 30 incident, not guilty. Violating flight regulations with the Ashmar, not guilty. Desertion during the Colony incident, not guilty. Next, destroying a new weapon without authorization, not guilty. Conrad knew that at this point it was most likely a win, but Eliard was more focused than his butthole puckered. Milkoff says that all testimonies referring to the weapon in question as a Gundam remains unverified and won't be entered into the records. That's not sketchy at all. Commodore Milkov bangs his gavel. This trial is over. Eliard salutes, but Conrad gives him a hug. Murphy tells Eliard that after he was injured, he was sent to Earth and placed under house arrest for the past 5 months. He said once he saw the tabloid, he slipped out to find them. Conrad says his testimony saved him. They have a party later that night to celebrate. The Titans test team is reunited once again. But after tonight, they will all go their separate ways. Carl will head back to the Colony Public Corporation, while Hendrik and Audrey head back to the moon. However, Murphy and Eliard are still enlisted. Conrad needs to find them a post. Joanna pours Conrad a drink. He thanks her as he couldn't have done it without her. Conrad mentions Kirishima is totally into her and she should go talk to him. As she talks to Kirishima, Conrad notes that it's nights like this that he wished could last forever. Eliard receives a summons to headquarters. He is to report to the Earth Federation Forces Officer Academy, the place where he and Carl once studied. He heads there to find Conrad and Murphy. Conrad pulled some strings. Murphy and Eliard are going to be mobile suit instructors. Neo Zeon is ramping up a new war. It is up to them to help train as many mobile suit pilots to take down Haman's forces. Eliard stands at attention with determination. And that will conclude Mobile Suit Gundam Advance of Zeta Flags of Titans. This was such a fun ride. I know a lot of you love the crazy mobile suits of the Titans test team, but the courtroom drama was the most intriguing part of this all. However, I don't like that everyone was conveniently in New Carson City to testify right at the last moment, but it is a minor gripe. Now that we have concluded Flag of Titans, we will eventually cover AOZ Reboot. But first, we must continue our coverage of Gundam Sentinel. But that will do it for now, new types. Remember, Eliard will go on to train a bunch of amazing soldiers, but Haman will ultimately be taken down by a bunch of kids. Peace.